was simply too much for the party. In fact, other than massive and unending government spending, the Democrats don't seem to have anything else in the playbook. Mr. Biden didn't even try to negotiate the cost of military trans treatments down. $52 million a year on trans treatments in the armed forces? And all the Bud Light you want, I guess. It was insane. Monday was a good day for Trump and another bad day for his opposition. The Don sank a number of three-point shots. The other side didn't even get off the bench. Back after this. Take your health into your own hands with All Family Pharmacy. They have more than 200 medications, including ivermectin. Forget waiting rooms, pharmacy lines. Just order online and get delivery straight to your door. More than 100,000 Americans trust All Family Pharmacy, and you should too. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use promo code BILL10 for 10% off. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Overnight tonight, a low of 63 degrees. Some patchy fog, but not as widespread as this morning. Then a warm day, 86 for the high, partly cloudy and noticeably a little bit humid too. Might see a sprinkle or spot shower in the afternoon to early evening. Very slim chance, most of us staying dry. Thursday, near the record, 92 for the high. The record is 94 from 1944. It's hot and mainly dry, partly cloudy skies. There is a slight chance for an isolated strong storm to develop in the late afternoon to early evening. While a low chance, it could be strong, so let's keep an eye on that for Thursday evening. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
What's happening today? Here's your first dose of the news you need to know. This is Mike Ferguson in the morning on NewsTalkSTL.
Well, we've got some irrefutable good news when it comes to the economy, and that has to do with inflation. Have we finally gotten this under control? We're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Hey, good morning. Mike Ferguson here. Thanks, as always, for making NewsTalkSTL part of your weekday. Halfway through the week. Hang on. Flashback Friday is just a couple days away. By the way, go ahead and send in your Flashback Friday bump music requests. Send them to Jerome or just put them on our social media. Let's get a big list and make Jerome go through a lot of music so he's got to learn even more 80s culture and music. I'm just saying, let's do that to him. Anyway, we had an interesting conversation with Andrew Langer on yesterday's program. And Andrew Langer, of course, one of the key folks at the Conservative Political Action Committee and the CPAC Foundation, and at the Committee Against Socialized Medicine as well. And the conversation had to do with President Trump's executive order that he signed on Monday, having to do with prescription drugs and basically implementing, or at least trying to implement, price controls, saying it's going to save us a lot of money. But will it? And is this the right role of government? And then more importantly, what's the cost of this? There's a lot to take in here, but Andrew made it pretty easy to digest. Here's what he had to say. Stroke of the pen and drive down prescription drug costs for everybody? Well, that seems to be what President Trump believes is going to happen. On Monday, he announced a new executive order that he says is going to drop prescription drug prices by 30 to 80%. That sounds fantastic. But what are the trade-offs and what are the costs? And is this the right way government should be involved? Big questions deserve big answers here. I'm Mike Ferguson. And here's the thing is, I think everybody agrees on the goal of making prescription drugs less expensive to us, other than maybe the pharmaceutical companies. So why would anybody raise an alarm and say, wait a minute, this may not be a good idea? Well, I am joined now by Andrew Langer. He is the director of the Center for Regulatory Freedom at CPAC, also the executive director of the Coalition Against Socialized Medicine. And Andrew, I have a feeling that we may make ourselves kind of unpopular with some people with this discussion right now. On Monday, the president says, executive order, we've got to lower the cost of prescription drugs. It's unfair that other countries pay less for the same drugs that we do. Big populist appeal. But what's the problem, if any, with government intervening from the top down on something like this in the market when we frankly know government and pharmaceuticals have been in bed with each other for decades?
Well, let's start here with, the advocacy that a lot of us did, right? You talk about the unhappiness, Mike, and, the advocacy that a lot of us were doing on these issues during the last administration, right? And when you had the Biden administration coming in and essentially pulling a massive threat on the pharmaceutical industry, threatening to impose 95% excise taxes on prescription drugs if they didn't come to the negotiating table and negotiate for price reductions, right? If you were upset about that because you understood the ramifications of what a 95% tax on pharmaceuticals would do to innovation in America and the onshoring of jobs and those things, well, then you can't be upset if folks who are doing that advocacy are raising the same concerns here at home. Yeah, we all want lower prices across healthcare. But the only things that will deliver those lower prices are greater competition and greater innovation. And you can't do that when you have a heavy-handed government policy essentially limiting, first of all, threatening the intellectual property rights of these companies, which is part and parcel of this, but also, threatening the ability to engage in the expense of research and development. And so we're deeply troubled by this. And I'm really speaking in my guise as executive director of the Coalition Against Socialized Medicine, because, we're the ones who have been this confederation of organizations have been pushing on these issues for quite some time.
Okay, so let's talk about the research and development part of this. I mean, one of the things that the president is saying is that basically we are retaliating against other countries that are getting better deals. I spoke with Congressman Bob Onder earlier this week. He referred to this as importing socialist price controls into the U.S. So it's really complicated. So somebody says, I want my insulin, I want my blood pressure medicine, I want my heart medicine to be less expensive because it's hurting me because of how much it costs. This sounds great to me. Why am I worried about the trade-offs?
Because at the end of the day, if we go down this road and we shortchange the ability of these the folks who are doing the innovations to do the research, right? It's very expensive to do research and engage in this innovation and then jump through all the regulatory hoops down the road. If we shortchange their ability to sort of recoup those expenses, then we don't get the innovation down the road. So there's that trade-off. And at the end of the day, one thing we do know is that when you engage in price controls, which is essentially what we're talking about here, you get less of the product. With the same part on the other side of this, which is if we go down this road of engaging in these kinds of what they call prescription drug reimportation, which is the idea of importing drugs from abroad based upon the price controls that are there abroad, one of the things that I keep hearing, Mike, is, well, these pharmaceutical companies should just stop selling in these other countries where they're engaging in price controls. And the problem there becomes one of where the patents get seized, and so essentially that is the big threat that's out there. The reality is, sure, we can have a conversation here at home about regulatory costs. We maybe have a conversation about periods of exclusivity or changing the way in which we allow drugs to transition from being name brand into generics. We know that 80% of the reduction in price comes from the introduction of generics into the marketplace. But at the end of the day, what we need to be doing here is protecting innovation. And this goes foursquare against that.
Okay, so is there a simple explanation? We're visiting with Andrew Langer. You can find his work at the Coalition Against Socialized Medicine. Is there a simple answer for why consumers or why countries are paying less for the same medicines and the same prescriptions in other countries compared to the U.S.? Because what the president's arguing is that we're subsidizing basically their purchases and they're shifting the cost onto us and giving discounts everywhere else. accurate, but that's what he's arguing.
No. I mean, essentially, it's an accurate sizing up of the situation. But the problem is that what we're ignoring is that there is this threat of what's called compulsory licensing, right? The idea of we're going to go down this road, and if you don't sell us the drugs or allow us to sell the drugs at this price, then we're going to essentially seize your patent, and we don't want that to happen again, because that sort of bottoms out the market. So we've had this uneasy peace over time, and yeah, the president is right. But here's the other part of this, Mike, is that we've just spent the last few months, right, not fully 100 days, but a good chunk of the first 100+ days of the Trump presidency. We've talked about the imposition of tariffs on pharmaceutical importations from other countries, right, to try to level that playing field here as a way of trying to get the prescription drug manufacturing re-onshored here in the United States in many cases. And some of that is working. But what you cannot do, you can't have it both ways. This is one of my concerns here. You can't have it where you engage in sort of this protectionism in order to sort of protect the marketplace here at home, while at the same time essentially adopting the predatory practices abroad. You have to have some happy medium. And again, it hasn't been the greatest system, but up until now, there's been at least a decent system at work here. So I think you try not to have it both ways. You try not to be hypocritical about it.
Okay, so I got about a minute and a half left, Andrew. So somebody's out there saying, okay, but at least he's doing something. If you don't like this, then what's a better solution? What should we be doing to make these medicines more available? Or more.
Well, right. And so I think part of this is he is trying to bring the pharmaceutical companies to the table to try to find a way to renegotiate these prices. I think playing strong arm with other countries in terms of making sure that they're not undercutting the U.S. marketplace, that's the other way to do this. But at the very least, what we have to recognize, we have to make it easier to bring these drugs to market. That's the central issue here. We need to allow for innovation to occur, and we need to remove the barriers to that innovation. That's the best way to go about doing it.
Yeah, so this sounds like what I'm hearing you say is this is as much a regulatory issue as it is a tax and tariff and executive order issue. Absolutely,
100%. We have to be doing what we can to make sure that it becomes easier to make the sweeping changes that need to happen in order to bring these innovative drugs to the marketplace.
Okay, so Andrew Langer, and the people want to connect with you and follow your work on this or anything else. What are the best places to do that? Social media, website, anything like that?
Listen, for me, it's at Andrew_Langer on Twitter or X. The website for CASM, the Coalition Against Socialized Medicine, is nosocializedmedicine.org. And you can find my regulatory work at cpac.org/regulatory freedom.
Yeah, all right. I appreciate it, Andrew, because these are really complicated things. And the populist answer so often resonates with people when the complicated answer is harder to follow and sounds more painful. But in the end, the free market approach is going to be in my opinion, it's going to be the longer, less expensive and freedom-based solution. But sometimes that's hard to sell.
Amen to that.
All right, Andrew, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, 314-912-1019. Still having some fallout happening from President Trump announcing he's going to accept a luxury jumbo jet from Qatar as a gift, and accept that to basically make it into the new Air Force One. We've got a different, some more commentary coming in on that. I'm going to let you hear from one of the leading conservative voices who's not a fan of this decision, and then you can let me know what you think, and then we'll probably just wrap it up and move on. But that's just ahead right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
The far left wants to destroy conservative values in America.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Spring has sprung at Daniel's Farming Greenhouses on Joggerman and St. Peters. Discover our breathtaking 55,000 square feet of greenhouses featuring 8,000 hanging baskets, hundreds of perennials, and 100,000 pots of colorful annuals. From vegetable plants to premium grass seed, mulch to herbs, our knowledgeable staff is ready to answer all your questions. Start spring off right with pansies, potted tulips, and everything your garden craves. Daniel's Farming Greenhouses. Visit us today on Joggerman or online at danielsfarminggreenhouses.com.
Remember those magical moments in Mom's kitchen? The heavenly aroma of fresh baked cookies? At Trolley Stop Bakery in Chesterfield's Forum Shopping Center, our co-op of talented bakers has been perfecting that homemade magic for 4 decades. From the gooeyest cookies in town to custom pies, cobblers, and cakes, everything's made from scratch, just like Mom and Grandma's recipes. Need that perfect corporate gift? We ship our famous cookies nationwide. The Trolley Stop Bakery, 67 Forum Shopping Center, or TrolleyStopBakery.com. Because some traditions are too sweet not to share.
Attention St. Charles, looking for a local spot that satisfies all your cravings? Mario's Donut Restaurant is your place to go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. From mouth-watering sandwiches and omelets to delicious gyros, Mexican dishes, salads, and wraps, we've got it all. And don't forget our famous donuts. They're so good, they'll make your eyes glaze over. Dine in or carry out, our friendly staff is ready to serve you with love and care. Mention NewsTalkSTL when you visit. Call 636-447-4515 or visit mariosdonutrestaurant.com.
Hi, Kirk Hilsinger here, and I'm the new chairman of the St. Louis Republican Central Committee. I invite you to our meetings that take place the first Thursday of every month at 3710 Hampton Avenue. You can stay connected with us to learn more about how you can get involved, make your voice heard, and contribute to our shared goals. Together, we can make a difference in the city of St. Louis and the state of Missouri. For more info, visit our new website at stl-gop.com. That's stl-gop.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
Get up, St. Louis. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Okay, where do we start? There's a lot going on today. Holy crap.
It seems like the news just keeps ramping up the last few days.
My goodness. Yeah, absolutely. Like, for instance, here in a second, this may not be as simple as just, agree to disagree. Some of the loudest voices questioning Donald Trump's decision to accept that jumbo jet, they're conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're on the right. I'm going to play one example for you here in just a minute or so. We talked about that a lot yesterday, but I just want to kind of put a bow on that. But I have a feeling this is going to come back. This is going to be a bigger deal, I think.
They're all just jealous they don't have a plane.
I would love a luxury jumbo jet.
It might be a little hard to park in our parking lot.
It would be. Yeah, it would be. Exactly. Well, but at least here, you don't have to pay for it like we had to at the last studio.
Oh.
So it would be free to park my luxury jumbo jet, as opposed to having to, pay a monthly fee at the last place. Just saying. By the way, Flashback Fridays coming up. Get those requests in. Today's the deadline. Got to get those in. So Jerome is waiting with bated breath for your 80s bump music request.
Yes, and I already have quite a few good requests. Well, I think they're good from what I've heard so far. Yeah. But if you want your chance to have your song heard, get it to me, Jerome at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Any bad request in?
There are a couple that so the popularity of it on YouTube and Spotify and all those places is huge. So I'm sure your generation likes it. I'm just like, why? Who commissioned this?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of those needs. Yeah, exactly. All right, it is 5:51 right now. Okay, there was a wild day in the Missouri legislature. Now, here's what happened. Governor, we did not see this coming. Nobody saw this coming. It was crazy. Governor Kehoe asked some lawmakers, the Republicans, to basically fast track a plan to commit hundreds of millions of dollars to keeping the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs in Missouri. Now, this isn't making a lot of headlines here, but what's going on is that the state of Kansas has been trying for years to lure those teams across the state line, literally like 5 miles across the state line. So they're trying to do that. And so the Royals and the Chiefs are basically playing the whole, well, I'm the prettiest girl at the dance, so everybody wants to date me. What are you going to offer me? And they're doing the corporate welfare thing. And so this proposal was basically put as an amendment to another bill. No vetting, no committees, no hearings, no nothing, and the House passed it. And Then it goes back to the state Senate. The state Senate says no way. And so we'll get into the dynamics of it, but we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars trying to be fast tracked at the very end. And we're going to ask the governor about that. The governor's going to be on with us right around 7:35, and he knows I'm going to ask about that.
Good.
Yeah.
That's something that we need answers on.
Right. Yeah, because there's the actual proposal itself as far as the money and the spend and all that. And then there's the, well, why not just wait for a special session kind of thing? Because it through, I think the bill is just dead at this point. They can move on to try to wrap up other things, but we'll find out more in just a little bit. All right. So that's coming your way. More details in the news dump at 6:04. And then let's start that conversation. Let's talk about that sort of economic development versus corporate welfare thing. Camellia from Americans for Prosperity is going to be with us around 6:35. All right. Reaction, and this is from the right. I'm not even going to bother with the reaction to the left because basically Donald Trump breathes and the left is mad about it.
Yeah,
kind of literally. But whatever he does, the left just says whatever he does, we don't like. Therefore, they just don't like the guy. But now you're getting pushback on the right when Donald Trump accepting that $400 million luxury jet, saying, I'm going to make this my Air Force One, then retire it to my library. Among those who are speaking out against it, Mark Levin was one. Another one was Ben Shapiro. And here's something that he posted on his video cast about that.
The Trump administration is now preparing to accept a super luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet from the royal family of Qatar. It is a $400 million gift available for use by President Trump as new Air Force One until shortly before he leaves office, at which time, according to the deal, the plane doesn't stay with the United States government. It then moves to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation, taking sacks of goodies from people who support Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, Al Jazeera, all the rest. That's not America first. Like, please define America first in a way that says you should take sacks of cash from the Qatari royals who are behind Al Jazeera. It just isn't America first in any conceivable way. So back to the original question. Is this good for President Trump? Is it good for his agenda? Is it good for draining the swamp and getting things done? The answer is no, it isn't. It isn't. If you want President Trump to succeed, this kind of skeezy stuff needs to stop.
Okay. And you've also got, Levin. Of course, Levin focuses everything back to what's the Constitution say. And he says the emoluments clause in the Constitution says you can't do this. This is literally explicitly unconstitutional. Congress could approve the accepting of that, but the president isn't going through Congress on this. So the president basically is appealing and saying, somebody offered you a $400 million jet. You take the jet and say thank you and move on. Okay, well, then also he accepts a jet. Now he's in the Middle East, and now he's lifting sanctions on Islamic countries and all this sort of thing, and countries with ties and with financing with terror. I mean, so it's a terrible, terrible look. Even if he's not letting it influence his policy, Shapiro has a point that it could get in the way of his actual agenda.
Yeah, I don't think that Shapiro should be the one calling out what is and what isn't America first, but I can definitely understand why it's bad optics.
Why not? I mean, he's a commentator like any of us.
Well, yeah, but America first is a definable movement, and a lot of the rhetoric. I mean, I like Ben Shapiro's commentary. He does sound a little AI generated sometimes.
Oh yeah, I didn't speed that up. That's just how he talks.
That's but in terms, I would say Trump is MAGA. America first and MAGA are not the same thing. It's a definable movement. But I agree that the optics of accepting a jet from a foreign nation with a culture that is definitely incompatible with American values is very bad optics, regardless of if it's a friendship type thing, a goodwill gesture, or if it is more nefarious for bribes, like you can apply.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. So I still think this could be something that causes roadblocks for the president, but we'll find out. We'll find out in the next few weeks or so. All right. Last note here, and I'll get into this a little more depth. Kit Bond died yesterday. So former state auditor, then he was elected governor, and it was a unique career path. He was elected governor. He was like 33 years old this time he was governor. Then he lost re-election, and then he won another election, and then he was elected to the U.S. Senate, which where most people know him from, where he served 20 some years. I got to know Senator Bond pretty well, over the years when he was in the Senate. I didn't know him until he met in the Senate. But I've got a few stories. All of us in the media who worked with Senator Bond, we've got Kit Bond stories. I don't think he would mind us telling a few of these stories. He was a character, and he was a giant in Missouri politics and an immense presence in national politics. He was incredibly well respected, and he was from a different era, without a doubt. But Kit Bond dead at the age of 86.
To have a roof over your head, a nice roof over your head, is very important.
That's Rick talking about his experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago, and they were very cooperative on getting us the right paint. They were in and out and done in no time. Once it was finished, looked great. We were very happy with it.
The main reason Rick called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty.
We've watched a lot of people get their house painted 3 or 4 times, and we haven't had to do any of it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to have to paint it every 5-7 years.
Take a tip from Rick and put down the paintbrush and call Rhino Shield for your free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago. Financially makes sense, especially if it's going to last like this did. Still looks great.
Call now. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
No pain, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth Kaiser. Please join me on my new show, Straight Lines with Elizabeth Kaiser.
On NewsTalkSTL.
You know the world today. People seem to be rooted more firmly in diverse ideologies more than ever.
SR1 Sundays.
Why is that? The shortest distance between 2 points of view is a straight line. Straight Lines with Elizabeth Kaiser.
Sunday nights at 8.
Right here on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Why leave your company's story to chance? In today's digital world, video content isn't just an option. It's essential for your success. At Blue Ocean Media Group, we've spent decades crafting compelling visual stories for businesses just like yours. From concept to completion, our award-winning team transforms your vision into powerful video content that connects with your audience and drives results. Don't trust your brand to amateurs. Partner with Blue Ocean Media Group. Visit blueoceanmediagroup.com today, and let's bring your story to life.
KLDY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. America's relationship with Syria is changing. On the first day of his visit to the Middle East, President Trump announced he will move to lift sanctions on Syria and normalize relations with the new government. Before leaving Saudi Arabia today, the president met with Syria's interim leader.
Since toppling Bashar al-Assad from power at the end of last year, Mr. Shara has been assiduous in trying to convince foreign leaders that he represents a new hope for Syria's future, despite his jihadist past. But meeting the US president represents his biggest coup yet on the world stage. He'll be buoyed by Mr. Trump's surprise announcement that US sanctions will be lifted on Syria. This is seen as essential by the new Syrian authorities if any real lasting progress is to be made.
That's the BBC's Sebastian Usher reporting. The president is also urging Iran to make a new nuclear deal with the U.S. More bloodshed in Gaza. Dozens of people were killed in overnight Israeli airstrikes. Egg prices are lower for the first time in months, but still remain near record highs.
While the cost of wholesale eggs has been coming down for a while, it was unclear how much store prices would have decreased in April, since consumer demand is usually high around Easter and Passover. But retail egg prices are still near historic highs as a persistent outbreak of bird flu wipes out flocks of egg-laying hens.
Overall, inflation cooled for the third straight month in April. Home insurance in California will soon cost more. The state's top insurance regulator says State Farm can start raising premiums by 17% to help the company rebuild its capital following the LA wildfires. State Farm has argued the emergency rate hikes are necessary to help it avoid dropping more policies. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I'm Claire from Trinity Debt Management. I'm a counselor, and the reason that I love working for Trinity is because I get to help folks with one of the hardest problems a family can face, and that's financial difficulties. In this day and age, everything is going up. You have higher utilities, higher grocery bills, higher fuel, and those credit card interest rates have gone up as well. We can help you with that. We can help help you get lower interest rates, lower monthly payments. In just a few minutes, we put together a plan that gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. I love my job. It's a great program and a very smart way to find debt relief.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
I'm Claire, a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Overnight tonight, a low of 63 degrees, some patchy fog, but not as widespread as this morning. Then a warm day, 86 for the high, partly cloudy and noticeably a little bit humid too. Might see a sprinkle or spot shower in the afternoon to early evening. Very slim chance, most of us staying dry. Thursday, near the record, 92 for the high. The record is 94 from 1944. It's hot and mainly dry, partly cloudy skies. There is a slight chance for an isolated strong storm to develop in the late afternoon to early evening. While a low chance, it could be strong, so let's keep an eye on that for Thursday evening. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine-in or carry-out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
To our brave police officers and first responders, we say thank you for risking your lives to protect us. To all the incredible volunteers who've joined hands with the David Dorn Foundation to raise funds for equipment and services, we extend our heartfelt gratitude. We stand strong with our volunteers who give their time, talent, and dedication as a shield of support for those who rush into danger. The David Dorn Foundation gives a big thank you from our heart to yours. Visit dornfoundation.com and join as a volunteer.
The Vic Borselli Show.
So we're up to 1,000 measles cases in the United States. We will talk to Dr. Salvatore Giorgiani. Think he's Italian? Wednesday at 9:05. I bet he is Italian. Of course he is.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
Are you pretending to be crazy?
Gabe Pfeiffer.
There's something serious I have to tell you about the future.
Get up, St. Louis.
Let's knock it off.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up, get up. This is your cousin.
Gabe, we got a lot going on today.
Apparently. My goodness.
Gabe walks and he's like, what did I just walk into?
I haven't even had the first sip of my coffee. And
All
Mike's
right,
like, okay,
good.
here's what's coming.
There you have it.
Yeah, there's my daily dose of white supremacy.
There you
by
go,
the way.
yeah. All right. A last-minute corporate welfare plan shot down in the Missouri legislature, at least for now. And it's not even so much that it was proposed. It was the way that it threw a monkey wrench into everything. So we're going to get to that because this was big. Also, an icon of Missouri politics passes away, and the Cardinals hope to keep that hot streak going. Let's dump some news on you. Okay.
All right. What the gremlins in the studio? If you could just let me do my job, please.
Seriously.
Wake up, America. It all worked out. You know, I mean, they got all the news.
The morning news dump.
You know what's the problem when the volume goes down and nobody's touching anything?
I know. You were like doing the no, officer. I had nothing to do with that look on your face. Oh my goodness. All right. We did not see this one coming. Okay. A last minute amendment to a bill threatened to bring the Missouri legislature to an impasse. The amendment was a funding plan to help build a new stadium for the Kansas City Royals and also cover the majority of the cost of renovating Arrowhead Stadium for the Chiefs. The proposal could have committed hundreds of millions of dollars to these projects. The governor suggested that. The plan was not introduced as a separate bill or vetted or discussed in a committee. It was added to another bill as an amendment, and it passed the House easily. But at least as of right now, it was shut down in the state Senate. Yeah.
Yeah. So sounds like some weird shenanigans going on. I have so many questions.
Yes. I do too. So we've got different angles on this. One, there is the whole like mechanics. We've got other stuff we need to get done, and we've only got a couple days left to do it. Where are we with that? Where are we with the other priority items? In addition to how was this, worked in at the last minute? We're going to talk to Camellia about that around 6:35. At 7:05, Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute, who focuses completely on like municipal policy. He's going to break down the economics of this. So we're going to address the claims of it. And then at 7:35, Governor Kehoe is going to be with us as well. We're going to ask him and then he'll give his perspective. And so we're going to get basically every angle to it on the program here this morning. All right. 6:20. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because I got a couple stories myself. Former U.S. Senator and former Missouri Governor Kit Bond has died. And the funny thing is, as we kind of chuckle, but those of us who knew Kit Bond
got stories.
You can still be sad that such a giant of Missouri politics and such a character. You can be sad that we've lost him. I mean, he was 86 years old, but just everybody who knew him has memories, and I've got some.
Yeah, and from what I understand, he lived a full life.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh yes. He passed away in St. Louis on Tuesday. Bond served as governor from 1973 to 1977, and then again from 1981 to 1985. He served 4 terms in the U.S. Senate after that. Christopher S. Bond, known as Kit Bond, like I said, was 86 years old. And if you'll indulge me, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I got a couple Kit Bond stories just from my career and my years of knowing him as well. I'll do that around 6:20. If you have any, let me know. 314-912-1019, or you can send us a note or your thoughts on that on social media, or send us something through the app as well. Okay, so this could become an ongoing thing and an ongoing maybe pain in the backside for President Trump. We're going to find out, but his plan to accept that jumbo jet from Carter is not sitting well with many of his own top supporters. Here's the story.
The White House is batting away ethics concerns about the gift, insisting that receiving a $400 million luxury airplane would be legal. But that hasn't stopped some of the president's biggest MAGA supporters from condemning the potential gift. Various media reports quote Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and others objecting to it and expressing alarm over receiving the jet from a country accused of financing terrorism. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to kind of, I'm not going to harp on this, for days on end, but it is going to be interesting to see whether or not this becomes an obstacle for the president and his agenda, because, you've got that honeymoon period after the election, and then lawmakers start saying, ooh, I got to win re-election here next year. And so you don't want that getting in the way. And the emoluments clause is pretty clear. It just comes down to whether or not anybody is going to interpret this as a gift for the president versus for the executive branch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the way the story is often cast, kind of makes it lean towards the former as opposed to the latter, because I've noticed in the reporting, they always say the donation of a jumbo luxury jet. It's like, okay, if it was just a jet, it would sound different if you didn't include luxury, right? It would sound different if you weren't saying specifically to Donald Trump, because it would be taken into custody by the Department of Defense. So I don't like the casting of the story.
But then he's also saying, after I'm president, we're going to retire it for my library.
Now that does add the complication. It's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, wait, how can you make that decision?
And by the way, I'm off now to the Middle East to lift sanctions on countries that we know have been involved in financing terrorism.
Yeah.
Now, would it change anything if they switched it to a donation of the plane to the country and then he used eminent domain just to confiscate it?
Well, if they gave it to the country and it was left as Air Force One for other presidents, I think we're having a different discussion.
Well,
that's a good point.
Well, here, I guess one of the questions is the presumption that by the end of his term, the new Air Force One that's being constructed by Boeing is going to enter service, in which case it's this jet is a stand-in until the next one comes. So if the timeline was made clear as to what's going to happen to it, I think that would be better. And then of course, you don't want damage done to our efforts at peace in the Middle East, right? So I'm curious as to what all is going on with this. I don't trust the reporting on it. I really don't, because if any other president had been involved in the Abraham Accords from his first term, they would have gotten a Nobel Prize. That you know what I mean? So, but that kind of just went by the wayside. It's like, okay, the Abraham Accords, whoa, no big deal. That was huge. And so, is this a continuation of this, or is this a bastardization of it? Is it something weird? I don't know, because I don't trust reporting.
Yeah. All right. The numbers are in, and Planned Parenthood admits to having committed over 402,000 abortions in the United States in 2024. It gets worse. The exact number is 402,230. Now, that's according to their own report. That's literally quoting Planned Parenthood's reports.
Right.
The report also says, again, Planned Parenthood's reports says they received $792.2 million in taxpayer funding in 2020.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Taxpayers, as a matter of fact, are the organization's largest financial supporter, providing in 2024 39% of Planned Parenthood's $2 billion of revenue. And that's actually up from the 34% of the revenue in the previous year's report.
You know, in the post-Roe era, Planned Parenthood should have gone the way of the dodo.
Yes.
And certainly not be taking, over $500 million in government money. That's crazy that we're still talking about this garbage.
Yeah, and the Republicans have the ability to eliminate that from the spending plan they're doing right now. Let's find out whether they're going to do it. All right, the new UFL power rankings are out, and the Battlehawks actually fell a spot.
Oh, no.
Yep, our Fox Sports analyst RJ Young has them at number 3 in the league this week. Right behind the Battlehawks, this is interesting, is their 3. Number 4 is this week's opponent, the Birmingham Stallions, who are the defending champions. Michigan Panthers and DC Defenders are first and second this week. All 4 teams in the top 4 are 5-2 on the season. Yep. All right. The Cardinals and the Phillies game got rained out on Tuesday. They will play a split doubleheader today. First game starts at 12:05. Second game will get underway at 5:15. Both games are on FanDuel. Redbirds are on a 9-game winning streak right now. And this is interesting. Major League Baseball has posthumously reinstated both Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
That means that both are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. It doesn't guarantee they'll be elected or inducted, but they're eligible for it.
I'm going to guarantee it.
I almost guarantee Joe Jackson's in.
Yeah.
First ballot. I don't know about Pete Rose.
Really? You think there's still a thing with Pete Rose?
I think there's still a thing with Pete Rose. This just means they're no longer banned from consideration. Jackson died in 1951. Rose died this past September. Interesting stuff.
Indifference. Stop right now before you blow us all away. You wanna do that? Get up! Can't you hear the alarm?
Spring is in the air, and so are the savings at Johnson Heating and Cooling. Let our family take care of your family's heating and cooling needs. Right now through May 15th, get a complete air conditioning checkup for just $99. Fully licensed and insured with free estimates, and we service all brands. Comfort meets affordability. That's the Johnson Heating and Cooling promise. Call 636-332-4141 or visit johnson-heatingandcooling.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
This is the actual precedent set why Bernie Sanders cannot have a 32-hour work week.
The Department of Labor wishes to report that the workers of Fredonia are demanding shorter hours.
Very well, we'll give them shorter hours. We'll start by cutting their lunch hour to 20 minutes.
Where's Fredonia?
Oh, it's right.
Oh, here we go.
It's on the southern part of Gooberstam. And of course, Rufus T. Firefly was the leader of Fredonia.
Vic Porcelli, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Is your pup in need of a spa day? At Pretty Little Paws, we believe grooming should be a stress-free, tail-wagging experience. Our one-on-one, fear-free grooming ensures your furry friend gets the gentle, personalized care they deserve. No noisy kennels or long waits, just love, patience, and expert grooming in a calm, relaxing environment. Because a happy pup means a happy you. Pretty Little Paws, with 2 locations in O'Fallon and St. Peters. Visit us online at prettylittlepawsgrooming.com.
Hey, Columbo here for Rockwood Charcoal. Rockwood is made from 100% pure Missouri oak and hickory, so you're cooking with the best and supporting local industry and a local business all at once. There's over 100 area Rockwood retailers. Find yours at rockwoodcharcoal.com.
Hi, it's Ken Williams, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the Capastrami. You've got hot pastrami, melty Swiss cheese, crunchy coleslaw, and zesty Russian dressing. What else do you need? I love Capriati's, and you will too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Dorr. Check out my show, Shall Not Be Infringed, Sunday nights at 9. But now it's more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
All right. One of the giants of Missouri politics has died. So rest in peace, Kit Bond.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is, I knew Kit Bond, obviously being a reporter and an anchor, we were acquaintances and I interviewed, we were on a first name basis. I hadn't talked to him in a number of years. Because his health has been really rough over the last several years. But he was here in St. Louis, but I've got a couple stories. If you talk to anybody in the media or anybody in politics who's been around for any amount of time, they've got Kit Bond stories. And they're almost always worth listening to. This guy was such a character, but he was also a giant of Missouri politics, like I said, and policy. And while a lot of people will tell you the stories of how much fun Kit Bond was, and he was, and I'll get to that in a minute. I don't know that people are going to appreciate how much gravitas he brought to the United States Senate, and he really elevated Missouri's place in the national government. He really did. It is 6:19 right now. By the way, Flashback Friday coming up, 80s bump music requests. Got to get those in today. And Jerome was just saying, got several in, but we got room to get more in there so he can go through those. If nothing else, it's an education for Jerome to learn the 80s.
It's a rite of passage.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. And still ahead here, a last minute corporate welfare proposal causes political chaos. So what can we still get done in these last few days before the session ends? That update's coming for you at 6:35. Okay. Kit Bond, he was early on. At the time, he was the youngest governor ever elected. He actually might still be the youngest governor ever elected. He was 33 years old when he was elected governor, and he'd already been the state auditor before that.
Mm-hmm.
So state auditor, then elected governor, he lost re-election, and then he won a second term. So he had, a gap between his two terms. Then he was elected to the U.S. Senate and served for 24 years. Where do I start? Because I have to express some gratitude because Kit Bond was one of the people who really, as I was a very young reporter and anchor at the time, I was not doing talk radio, I wasn't doing opinion, I was still doing news. He was one of the first ones who elevated me to a statewide name.
Right.
So Senator Bond had this thing called the Listening Post. And today you would call it a podcast, but basically it was a conference call. And so what would happen is he would pick out, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 reporters or anchors from around the state. And he usually and they would all be from different areas of the state. And we would be allowed to ask him anything that we wanted. And it was a 1-hour program. And, so basically anybody could call in and listen or record it. And that's where the sound bites would come from, but all of us would be able to ask. And I was on that regularly as one of the people who would be a panelist on that show, on the Listening Post. Now, today we'd call that a podcast. And he would just send it out and you'd do it on Zoom or whatever. But it was all, he did it from his Senate office. They would call us, we would be patched in, and then all the other media would call in and listen and then record and that sort of thing. So that was really the first time I think that I had a statewide presence to other media. It wasn't out in the public, but it was to the other media. And so I've always really appreciated the fact that he included me on that, because I was I was a young reporter back then. I was in my mid late 20s back then. So that was I was doing local news. I was doing local traffic. I was doing local sports. But I'd interviewed him a number of times, and for whatever reason, he flagged me as one of the dozens. And there were people on that weekly thing, the listing post, who disagreed with him. I mean, there were people on the hard left who asked very antagonistic questions. I tried to ask, legitimate, fair questions, but he never feared a question from any reporter in all the years that I remember, doing journalism. And then there was one time I was working for an organization called Metro Networks, which I don't even know if they're still around anymore. If you remember the old Metro traffic days, you get reports when like Metro traffic is okay. That was around the country. I was working in a local branch of that, and I was hired to expand their news product. So I was their news anchor and I was their sports anchor. And it was funny because back then you just had literally a tape recorder plugged into the phone line. And that's how we would do interviews. And then we would have to take the audio from the tape recorder, pick out the soundbite, and then we'd link that into a thing called a cart, C-A-R-T, which were they looked like 8-track.
Yeah.
Is what they looked like, but they were, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then have to time it and record the sound bites. That's how we do sound bites before the digital stuff came along. And it was funny because I'd hit the record and, I'd call in and say, hey, can I talk to, the senator about this? And I was among those that was fortunate enough to get a call back pretty fast. And so I said, okay, I got to put you through the thing, Kit. And it was weird because I'm a believer that when somebody's in the U.S. Senate or they're in Congress or they're the governor, that I think you show respect for the office and you use that title. But he was on a first name basis with almost all of us, and so I said, Kit, I got to put you through this thing here. Now, Kit was well known back then for enjoying himself a few drinks.
That's what I hear.
Oh yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Honestly, it wasn't until his, as I understand it, the last woman he was married to, really cleaned up his health. Said you're not 25 anymore. You can't do. But he was well known, not ashamed of it. He was a fun guy. He was a serious thinker. He was a very good politician, but he was also a fun guy in kind of a,
traditional sense.
It's sort of a
old school.
It's sort of a college dude. So I mean, he wouldn't be afraid to mix it up with somebody.
Was he an early dude bro?
Kind of, yeah. He was kind of like kind of a godfather of the dude bros.
Okay.
But without the man bun. I mean, this was a guy's guy.
Okay.
And he didn't mind,
somewhere between John Wayne and Dude Bro.
Yeah, exactly. And a little more John Wayne, but just a very, very fun John Wayne,
that's fun.
Sort of thing. And so, and I'm talking to him on the phone and I can tell that he's had a few, which was nothing out of the ordinary back in the 90s at all. Okay. And, and so I start to ask a question, and this was part of the way things were different back then, because he started to give his answer and he just tore into somebody, and I hit the pause button and I just went, Kit, do you really want to say that on the radio?
Oh,
and I've never told the story on the air before.
Okay.
And then he goes, oh yeah, you're right, Mike. You're right, Mike. Yeah, start over. Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it.
That's funny.
So,
it's like, hold on, pause button. Wait a minute. Yeah.
And then we got the answer.
My man.
Now, I mean, they teach you in journalism school, never, ever, ever do that. The answer is the answer, but
and you're gonna get what you get, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, you're helping a brother out.
You also want the relationship there as well. I mean, and to be fair, I have done that similar thing with Democrats,
right? Yeah.
As well.
Are you sure you want to go there, kind of thing?
Yeah, I remember one time I was covering an election night results, and I was this is before I was doing the opinion thing, but I had an intern with me, and we went out to a Democratic thing, and a local state representative Democrat had won a close race, and so she was clearly drunk. When we were interviewing her.
Okay.
And, she said some stupid things, and then she said some more typical election night things. And I remember telling that intern, I said, okay, you got a choice. You can embarrass her with the drunken things
Mm-hmm.
and not have a relationship and not be able to cover policy and stuff when it really matters. Or you can do her a solid, do the legitimate soundbite, because the other one didn't mean anything anyway. It's not like she admitted to crimes or anything like that. She just said something stupid. I said, or you can do a regular soundbite and then let them know that you took care of them. I said, that's not tilting your hand on anything,
Mhm.
but, you know, do you want everything you've done and said when you're sloshed, you know, to be out there in public?
So walk
I said,
of the journalistic line there.
It's a walk of the line. It's a relationship builder. You know, you just have to do those things. But with Kit Bond, it was just so overt. Because a lot of people remember he was running for re-election and Jay Nixon was challenging him.
That's right.
And I think Jay was, I think he was Attorney General at the time. Was it Jay Nixon or was Mel? No, it was Jay Nixon. It was before Mel Carnahan. So it was Jay Nixon, or Mel Carnahan challenged John Ashcroft. But they were doing this thing where they would do called trackers, and everybody does it. But they would run up and try to put cameras in your face and all this sort of stuff. And Kid had gone on vacation with his, I think he was married at the time with his wife, and he was like out in Colorado or Utah or something, like at a ski resort. And they were in his face with it, and he was mad and probably had a couple. And he grabbed the tracker and basically threw him out of the elevator.
Oh, wow.
I mean, got physical with it.
Oh, man.
And Kid didn't have any problem back then, you know, throwing that. He was a burly guy, not a very tall guy, but a burly guy. And that ended up on all these commercials for Jay Nixon.
Mhm.
The Democrats like, we got him. We're
Of
going to
course.
beat him. We're going to win this seat. And what happened was his polling, Kit Bond's polling went straight up.
Oh, man. You know, sometimes the public takes things differently than I think the pundits think.
His one of the key people on his campaign, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he became, we were friends for a little while. He said that was the best thing that could have happened to our campaign, because that was like the era, Clinton era, where Democrats were making a lot of gains.
Oh,
He
yeah.
said we were worried about that race, and then they put that on, and people immediately they were all on board. They're like, yeah, good. Finally, somebody's throwing these little, whatever around. And so that was something I think that gets lost in a lot of the memory on there. So we've got plenty of time to, reflect on his policy. And he was a center right conservative. He was definitely not, the farthest to the right, but he had a history of being, conservative. And he brought a new level of, I think, importance to the state of Missouri. But oh my goodness, the stories of Kit Bond. They don't make them like Kit Bond anymore. That's for sure.
Well, there you go again, listening to Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A beautiful morning, but warmer air sneaks in this afternoon. I've got the high today at 86 under mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. A slight chance for a spot shower this afternoon, but the odds are slim, only 10 to 15%. Dry and partly cloudy tonight. Mild temperatures, the low in St. Louis only 69. Thursday looks like the hottest day of the year so far. We'll jump to 92 in the afternoon. Most of us stay dry, but could be an isolated storm or two south and east of St. Louis. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michaels Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michaels Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michaels Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
Welcome back to RX Watch. This alert is disturbing.
Right. A while back, we learned that companies like Johnson & Johnson use a mineral called talc in baby powder and other products.
And studies show that talc, when used for feminine hygiene, can cause ovarian cancer.
Now listen to this. RX Watch has learned that the talc they use is being mined in China.
Right, and talc mined in China contains heavy metal contaminants like chromium and magnesium, which are known to cause cancer. but China doesn't care.
So China gets the jobs and we get contaminated talc in our baby powder.
And ovarian cancer.
Right. With their specialized tests, the medical team at Onder Law can help you know if your ovarian cancer was caused by talc.
Onder Law has helped women for years with free and confidential consultation. You need to call Onder Law's pharma attorneys at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
The news and talk.
The tariffs are hurting China very badly.
They have to have the U.S. market.
That matters to St. Louis.
Until they start abiding by fair trading rules.
This is 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hi, this is Susie Moore. Check out my show, Red State Radio, Sunday afternoon at 4, right here on News Talk STL. Now it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Okay, so the Missouri legislative session just about ran off the rails in a chaotic day.
Yeah, what is happening right now?
I know. And so here's the other question is what can still be accomplished? Because I think the dust has settled a little bit, but I am telling you, I've got people in the Capitol telling me it's not even just a matter of like hurt feelings. It's a matter of people are angry.
Oh boy.
Not even so much what was proposed, but the way it was done. And so what's the effect on the big ticket items, those big free market things that we want to still get done in the next, 36, 48, 72 hours, literally at this point. It is 6:34 right now. Gabe's here. Jerome's here. My name is Mike. Mentioned a little bit earlier, Flashback Friday. Don't forget to get those requests in. We are waiting with bated breath to find out which 80s bump music you want to hear on Friday. Joined now by Camellia Peterson from Americans for Prosperity. Camellia, we like ourselves some disruption in politics. That's like a really popular word is disruption. But most of the time, this was not the disruption I think we expected, or maybe that was particularly useful. Walk us through kind of what happened, because you got two questions here, and we're going to talk to the governor about this later today, is that there's the proposal itself for the hundreds of millions of dollars for the stadiums, that sort of thing. And then there's the way and the timing that it was done that potentially could have affected some other really big things that are still before the legislature.
Yes. Good morning, by the way. Sometimes you have to look for the good things in the day. Today is kind of one of those days, right? No, it was, I think that, sometimes you go along and you think, okay, things are going really well. And it's kind of been this honeymoon session, with the new administration and whatnot. And you think, well, maybe they've forgotten about some of these things and we'll dodge a bullet, like, having to pay for sports stadiums. So I think it surprised a lot of people in the last 24 hours when all of a sudden it was an issue again. And so as we all know, the governor met with the House caucus at 8:30 yesterday morning. And, we were following this and we're in the Capitol, and it just was, and I think what you said is exactly right. It's not, yes, the issue itself is difficult, but it was really the way in which it was done. And I think that the way it was done broke trust in a lot of ways for a lot of people, because if you listened to any of the floor debate on the House and then on the Senate as well, House members, did not know this was coming until that morning. I think some of them had been getting calls from leadership and the governor, the night before. But this is a bill that was never vetted, never gone through committee, never voted on in a committee, obviously. And so nobody had seen it until that morning. So you're asking people to vote on something that is deeply unpopular in the state. And I'll get to that in just a second, because it is deeply unpopular with the voters. And you're asking them to do this. And not only that, but maybe I just haven't been around long enough, but I've never seen a bill go so quickly from the House to the Senate. And I thought, well, it'll be a little bit before the Senate takes it up. And no, I think it was over there and on the floor, maybe in a matter of an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And so they filibustered on this, all evening until they finally called quits on it about 9:30 last night. And I'm just over here sitting here thinking about the big things that they have left to do, especially on the Senate side. And we're eating up floor time on something like this.
Yeah, can and I know Gabe's got a question here. I was actually talking to Tim Jones about this last night. In all the years I've been covering the legislature and been involved in policy, maybe it's happened, and I want to leave room for maybe there's something I don't remember, but I don't ever remember something of this size going from nowhere to being voted on immediately, fast-tracked. I just don't remember that ever happening. And this was added as an amendment to like another bill regarding high schoolers and endorsement deals and things like that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No. And I was surprised by the margin that it passed in the House. I think it passed with 108 votes, and that was a little surprising, a little disappointing.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Good morning, Camellia. Gabe here. So yeah, my question actually was about those conservative priorities that are getting pushed to the back burner right now. What's left on the agenda?
So, I mean, the two big things in the Senate are, the Prop A fix and repealing that paid sick leave mandate. That's something that we are fully in support of. Just like the irony that struck me is that we're taking time talking about giving tons of money to billionaires whenever we have thousands of small businesses in Missouri who are hurting right now and being impacted right now by a law that's already gone into effect that we're supposed to be fixing. And so there's more than a little irony in that. So, the Prop A fix is an immediate thing that needs to be taken care of. It can't wait. Like it doesn't, it's not, you could argue that HJR 73, well, maybe they could push it to next year because it doesn't go on the ballot till 26. You could make that argument, but people are looking for that to be done. And I don't think that constituents are going to be happy at all if they don't get that across the finish line. I spoke with a Republican ladies group last night, and several of them were planning on going to the Capitol today because I think they've been told that it will be on the floor today.
Yeah. And 73, by the way, is the Amendment 3 repeal and replace,
Yes.
thing there, just so everybody knows.
Yes.
We're visiting with Camellia Peterson from Americans for Prosperity. Okay, so we know now the kind of monkey wrench that everything was thrown into because of that amendment and that proposal and the stadium deal. Is that now dead and done, and we're just trying to pick up where we were before that, or is there still a chance that this could affect what's on the agenda, what's on the priority? Because, hey, clock is ticking at this point. 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Friday, whatever's not passed is done and doesn't make it.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably the $1 million question right now. And I asked that same question to a senator last night, and he wasn't really sure because he didn't really see this coming, but had said this probably really increases the chance of having a special session. So, boy, I hope that yesterday was their shot at it and that they're done, but I don't know that will be the case. What I really would hate to see is if we do a special session just for this issue.
Yeah. And
that would be unfortunate.
Yeah. And then what's interesting is the pushback against this. You mentioned the filibuster a little bit earlier. This is one of those rare times that Republican, Democrat, there was very, very bipartisan, not just pushback, but anger, I think, that happened.
Yes, right. And, here's the thing. So back in early April, ASP Missouri did some statewide polling, and we were looking obviously at some very specific issues, including the REINS Act that we've been working on. But we asked a wide range of questions beyond that. And oddly enough, one of the questions that we asked voters was whether or not you support using taxpayer funding to build stadiums for the Royals and the Chiefs. And 73% opposed. Like, this is a number that legislators and the governor need to be paying attention to, because this is an overwhelming majority. And, when you break it down, those polls, they ask you how strongly you feel about something. Well over half of them felt very strongly about it. And there's a very small percentage of people that just were not sure, like 8%. So that's, you don't have much support there to pull from and come up on the 26th election cycle. I think that people are going to remember these things. And let's not forget, like Jackson County voted this down just a year ago.
Right. Yeah, there was a sales tax to basically pay for the new stadium. And what's complicating things a little bit here is that both of the current stadiums are technically publicly owned. These aren't owned by the ball teams out there. So that's a complicating thing. And we're going to get into those kind of into the weeds things a little bit later on. Again, we're visiting with Camellia Peterson with Americans for Prosperity. So at this point, then, do conservatives, free marketeers like us, do we need to then reset the pressure that we put on lawmakers? Or do we even need to let the dust settle still? Because, I had not seen a day like this in the legislature in a while. I've seen chaotic days before. I've seen stuff where things blow up before, but I've not seen one quite like this. And sometimes people need to sort of walk away and, take some deep breaths or do some political meditation or whatever it is that they're going to do before they reset. But there's just not that much time to reset right now.
Right. I can't, never say never in the last week of the legislature, right? Yeah. But it's unfathomable to me that with the days that we have left in the week and the big things that they have to tackle, it's hard to see that the Senate takes this back up. But I do think that we'll have a much better idea of that today. Yeah. And so I do think there is some wisdom in letting the dust settle. I think if it looks like that there is going to be a push to come back for special session on an issue like this, then I think absolutely the grassroots need to make their voices heard on this issue, because I think they made their voices heard previously, but they're going to have to make sure and come back at that again. So, there have been several good things that we've gotten done so far, and I hope that this does not overshadow everything else. So I'm trying to remain optimistic for the time that we have left.
Yeah. Because it's not been a bad session overall so far. We always want more, of good,
Sure.
conservative small government stuff, but it's really so far has not been a bad session, and we still have the chance to tack on, a couple decent things. So you're on the way to the Capitol now, right?
I am. Yeah, I am actually on the road as we speak. And so, just in the last 2 weeks alone, just a few of the things that have been sent to the governor's desk are things like eliminating the capital gains tax. Mm-hmm. And people across the country are looking at Missouri and saying, what in the world? Wow, way to go. Because Missouri is the first state to have done it like this. And so this is, really been a great thing that we got across the finish line. We had a great, homeschool bill that got across as far as homeschool participation in public school sports and further homeschool protections in that bill as well. We got the $50 million in funding for the Most Scholars program in the budget. There's, protections for student freedom of association on college campuses. So lots of good things. And I think we'll probably see a few more good things also come through the House, because obviously it's easier to get things through the House. So the House has some things that have gone through the Senate already that they still have yet to take up and get finished. And I think that we'll probably see that happen on their side.
All right. Camellia, we've already tagged y'all on our social media. So people can look up Americans for Prosperity Missouri, find the website, or just go to our social media to find yours and keep up, because that's it's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you in the next few days, just kind of one thing after the other at the very end. So appreciate the update, Camellia. Hope that you're well caffeinated.
I absolutely. I will say.
Uh-oh. She was going to say something.
Yeah.
And it was going to be good.
Yes.
Oh, well.
But the Chinese intercepted.
That's what it is. All right. Camellia Peterson of Americans for Prosperity. All right. Going to be up to date what's going on. And then 7:05. Okay. So 7 o'clock hour. We've got the look at the economics. Is it economic development or corporate welfare?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get two different perspectives, including from the governor himself at 7:35 right here on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Mike Ferguson in the morning. Mike Ferguson. Gabe Pfeiffer. Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. This is News Talk STL.
This is 101.9 and 94.1.
I have to tell you, if this is how they're going to behave, I'm rethinking my position.
News Talk STL.
This Memorial Day weekend, bring your crew to Busch Stadium to see the Cardinals take on the D-backs. May 23rd to the 25th, catch great promotions all weekend long, including a Mason Win bobblehead and a Kid City Connect jersey giveaway. Kick off your summer with ballpark hot dogs, ice-cold beers, and entertainment for the whole family. Tickets are available at Cardinals.com. This is how summer is meant to be. See you at the ballpark.
This is Alec Burleson, St. Louis Cardinals, for the Lou.
Hey parents, looking for something fun and unforgettable to do with the kids? Bring the whole family to a Cardinals game at Busch Stadium. From kid-friendly activities and giveaways to awesome promotions like Kids Run the Bases. Your little ones will have a blast, and so will you. Check out Family Sundays, presented by Smithfield, where select tickets include a free jumbo hot dog and soda. There's nothing like sharing the magic of Cardinals baseball together. Make your memories this summer at Busch Stadium. Tickets are available at Cardinals.com.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor-fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
Tim Jones here from my great friends at Comprehensive Chiropractic, the premier chiropractic and sports performance facility in the region. How do I know? Simply put, they've helped me on many occasions. Here's another solution to your everyday aches and pains. The Studio Health and Wellness Center. Services include Pilates and yoga, both with certified instructors. I can also highly recommend the massage therapy, which is not an indulgence. It's a proven method of healing and restoration. Trust my friends at Comprehensive Chiropractic in Eureka. CChiropractic.com. That's CChiropractic.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at Stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Bill O'Reilly here. Check out the O'Reilly Update this afternoon at 3:45. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
All right. An icon of Missouri politics passes away. And I would say Kit Bond also kind of extended beyond just politics. You didn't have to be a news junkie to have an opinion on Kit Bond, and the vast majority of Missourians really liked Kit Bond. The Democrats, if they're honest, will tell you they liked him too.
they kind of
everybody liked Kit Bond. All right, and the Cardinals hope to keep the hot streak going. It is 6:50 right now. Let's go ahead and do another news dump.
The morning news dump.
Are you joking? Is this a joke?
Listen, folks, the morning news dump.
Okay, former U.S. Senator, former state auditor, former Missouri governor, Kit Bond has died. He passed away in St. Louis on Tuesday. Bond served as governor from 1973 to 1977, lost his bid for re-election, but then won the office back and served from 1981 to 1985. He served 4 terms in the U.S. Senate, so 24 years after that. Christopher S. Bond was 86 years old. Memorial services are already planned for next week, and his remains will lie in state next week at the Rotunda at the state capitol before his burial, and it's going to be open to the public. And so will his memorial services as well. Okay, so this is continuing to be a thing. President Trump's acceptance of a jumbo jet from Qatar is not sitting well with even many of his top supporters so far. Here's the story.
The White House is batting away ethics concerns about the gift, insisting that receiving a $400 million luxury airplane would be legal. But that hasn't stopped some of the president's biggest MAGA supporters from condemning the potential gift. Various media reports quote Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and others objecting to it and expressing alarm over receiving the jet from a country accused of financing terrorism. Greg Clugston, Washington.
And there have been some in Congress questioning it at the very least. I think this might be one of those like thin ice things where There are some Republicans who are saying, I'm not sure about this, but I don't know how hard I'm supposed to push or say something because this could get in the way of progress on other agenda items. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, this whole thing is very interesting to me. I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Yep.
But by the way, just curious. I mean, if $400 million acceptance, $400 million donation from Qatar is bad, what about the $2 billion U.S. universities have accepted between 2021 and 2024?
Exactly, yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of gifts, I mean, and because we had somebody point out a Rumble, like, wait a minute, the Biden accepted gifts, and family members. Nobody was saying anything. Well, conservative media was saying something about it. Mainstream media wasn't saying anything about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's
and those were actually personal gifts.
Right.
Those went to the Biden family.
Yeah.
They didn't go to the DOD.
Yeah.
The big guy. The big guy.
That's right. Oh, my goodness. All right. The numbers are in and they're infuriating. Planned Parenthood admits to having committed over 402,000 abortions in the United States in 2024. The exact number, in case you want to write it down, 402,230. That is according to their annual report. So that's what they're publishing. That report also says they received $792.2 million in taxpayer funding in 2024. Taxpayers were the organization's largest financial supporter that year, providing 39% of Planned Parenthood's $2 billion of revenue. And again, these are all from Planned Parenthood's published reports. This is them saying this. That is, by the way, that's up from 34% of the revenue in the previous year's report. So the last year of the Biden administration, the amount of taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood went up
by a lot.
A lot. That is a lot.
It's disgusting.
All right. This is an interesting case here. Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan. You remember that one? She's the one who who did slide the illegal alien out the back door while ICE was looking to arrest him. Well, she's been indicted by a federal grand jury on charges that she helped that violent illegal alien evade arrest. On the Ingram Angle last night on Fox, Senator Josh Hawley says that indictment is a victory for law and order.
I'm tired of these judges all across the country acting like they're above the law, acting like they are some sort of tin pot dictators who can sit up there and say, oh, here's what we want to do. I'm going to run the country. I'm going to be president.
Dugan is charged with helping Eduardo Flores Ruiz flee ICE officers who were trying to arrest him during a court hearing on charges of domestic abuse. The judge in the case has pled not guilty. Let's see here. A few sports things happening here. The Cardinals and the Phillies game got rained out on Tuesday. They will play a split doubleheader today to make up for it. First game starts at 12:05, and this is in Philadelphia. The second game will get underway at 5:15. Both of those are on FanDuel. Sonny Gray is going to pitch the 5:15 game today. The Redbirds are on a 9-game winning streak. And this is interesting. We actually had a little bit of response to this, at least on social media. Major League Baseball posthumously reinstated both Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose. So that means both are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. Now, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to be elected to the Hall of Fame or inducted into the Hall of Fame. It just means they're no longer banned from consideration. Shoeless Joe Jackson was part of the so-called Black Sox scandal. But the evidence honestly doesn't indicate that he actually did anything to tank those games. His teammates did, but he argued for his innocence up till the day he died in 1951.
Yeah, that's the tragic thing when you have teammates that do things that completely destroy your own personal legacy, even if you had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And so Pete Rose, of course, died last September. He admitted to betting on the games. The catch here is that Pete Rose always maintained that he only bet on his team to win as a player and a manager. But with Major League Baseball, the cardinal sin is
betting,
anything
period.
related on gambling when you're a player. And, they drill that into you when you get to the major leagues, really when you get to any professional baseball. So he knew the rules. He broke them. He admitted them.
It's true.
But he was also arguably the greatest hitter of all time, and also was one of the few people who played like 8 different positions on the field over the course of his career, 7 or 8 different positions.
I'm of the notion that the punishment that doesn't fit the crime in this case. That that absolutely he needed to pay a price of some sort, right, for having broken the rules that he knew were the rules.
Yeah.
But like you said, arguably one of the greatest hitters in baseball, not being eligible for the Hall of Fame seems a bridge too far for me.
And he died knowing that he was one of, if not the greatest hitters, and knowing that he was still banned from the game of baseball as well. Let the debates begin.
Yes.
By the way, with Shoeless Joe Jackson, and I think they'll probably elect and induct him probably on his first ballot of eligibility. If Pete Rose is inducted, it may take a couple years. I mean, I think that there may be a posthumous punishment of him. I don't know that they're going to rush to put him in, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Jackson kind of goes right in as soon as he's eligible. If you want to see a really well done movie about that whole thing, go check out the movie 8 Men Out. One of my favorite movies of all time. It was based on the book 8 Men Out, which is about the Black Sox scandal. Fascinating movie, really well done.
For 3 generations, one family has ruled the road in quality asphalt paving. Ruby's King of the Road Hot Mix Asphalt Paving. Family owned and operated. We're your leading authority for driveways, lanes, and parking areas. No project is too small or too large. We cater to both residential and commercial needs with unbeatable quality at just $38 per square yard plus labor. Call 636-295-9949. 636-295-9949. Ruby's King of the Road Hot Mix Asphalt Paving. You save when we pave.
Springtime in St. Louis, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Mr. Rob Miller from Harvesttown Auto Body in St. Peter's did. He called Rhino Shield. Rob, what was the thought process for going with Rhino Shield as a business owner?
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted.
Rob, tell everyone how the experience was with Rhino Shield from start to finish.
The process that I liked was when you came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. Our building was really faded. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
Are your neighbors jealous?
I would be if I was them.
Thanks, Rob. Now it's time to call 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Genius.
Don't hate, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you're testing your blood sugar 4 or more times per day, injecting insulin 3 or more times per day, or using an insulin pump, call the Diabetic Health Hotline today.
800-515-2380. That's 800-515-2380. Paid for by U.S. Med.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at
NewsTalkSTL.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. House lawmakers worked late into the overnight as they pushed through marathon public hearings. They're debating President Trump's signature legislative package, which includes tax breaks tallying more than $5 trillion. There are also sizable reductions in Medicaid health care, food stamps for older Americans, and green energy strategy cuts. The House Speaker hopes to send the bill to the Senate by Memorial Day. Before leaving Saudi Arabia today, President Trump addressed leaders from Gulf nations. He said he wants Iran to wind down its nuclear program.
I want to make a deal with Iran. I want to do something if it's possible. But for that to happen, it must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The president has now arrived in Qatar. During the flight on Air Force One, he told reporters that Russian President Putin would like him to attend meetings in Turkey this week with Ukrainian leader Zelensky. Donald Trump said he's thinking about going and that it's a possibility. It's only May, but parts of the U.S. are coping with extreme heat.
Forecasters are advising people from the Dakotas to Texas and across the South to use caution outside, with unseasonably hot temperatures descending on the area. The National Weather Service in the Houston-Galveston area says highs over the next 6 to 10 days will make it feel more like August than May, with the highest temperatures in Texas and Florida. In Austin, it could break a century-old record for May of 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Several cities in North Dakota have set records in recent days, some that stood for well over 100 years. I'm Ben Thomas.
A new AP NORC poll finds Democrats deeply pessimistic about the future of their party. More at townhall.com.
Some big news. Iran is threatening to wipe Israel off the map and destroy America. Now, UN inspectors say Iran is close to getting nuclear weapons, just weeks away. But President Trump vows he won't let them. He's even moved 2 aircraft carriers to the area. This is a big story, and Newsmax's Rob Finnerty is covering it all and exposing the real threat. Tune 8 p.m. Eastern tonight for Rob's series Stop Iran and find out Trump's secret plan to fix this. Watch Finnerty on Newsmax on all major cable systems. President Trump says he watches Newsmax all the time. You should too. So download the free Newsmax app on your smartphone and sign up for Newsmax Plus to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax because it's real news for real people.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A beautiful morning, but warmer air sneaks in this afternoon. I've got the high today at 86 under mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. A slight chance for a spot shower this afternoon, but the odds are slim, only 10 to 15%. Dry and partly cloudy tonight. Mild temperatures, the low in St. Louis only 69. Thursday looks like the hottest day of the year so far. We'll jump to 92 in the afternoon. Most of us stay dry, but could be an isolated storm or two south and east of St. Louis. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hi, Kirk Hilsinger here, and I'm the new chairman of the St. Louis Republican Central Committee. I invite you to our meetings that take place the first Thursday of every month at 3710 Hampton Avenue. You can stay connected with us to learn more about how you can get involved, make your voice heard, and contribute to our shared goals. Together, we can make a difference in the city of St. Louis and the state of Missouri. For more info, visit our new website at stl-gop.com. That's stl-gop.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
Hey folks, Jamie Allman here. Exciting things are happening at the Hideout in High Ridge. Famous for the Sunset Patio, 4 big screen TVs, live music and events, and of course, the wings. The Hideout now has a brand new menu featuring handcrafted burgers and new items like their signature sunset dip and Dave's Chili. And now a second location, the Hideout at Sugar Creek Golf Course in High Ridge, featuring great event space. You can stop by for lunch or dinner. The new 2025 Hideout and the new Hideout at Sugar Creek Golf Course. We'll see you there.
Mike Ferguson.
You play ball like a girl!
Gabe Pfeiffer.
I triple dog dare you!
Get up! Can't you hear the alarm?
Get up, St. Louis.
So it's time to get out of bed. Pour yourself the greatest cup of Kofifi the world has ever seen. Rise up with one voice. Drain the swamp and take back our country. Today's the day we're going to do it, and it's time to do it right now. Believe me.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up! This is your cousin.
We can't afford to lose 2 big league teams. At least that's the argument that's being made.
Always the argument.
Yeah. Argument being made for spending hundreds of millions of dollars to help poor, downtrodden Major League Sports teams owners in Kansas City. And now this is affecting St. Louis and the entire state here. It is 7:06. We're going to get to that in just a second. Gabe's here. Jerome's here. Don't forget our News Talk STL podcast or on-demand listing. Matter of fact, this discussion we're about to have is something that I hope you'll be willing to put up on your social media and also send to your friends, because there are arguments being made that have a very easy emotional appeal that says, wait a minute, there's the tangible aspect. There's the stadium. There's the people. There are the players. There's the beer being purchased. There's the bratwurst being purchased. There's the jersey being purchased. That sales tax is going somewhere. Do we want it to go to Kansas instead of Missouri? And it's a lot of what's being discussed right now. All right, joined now by Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute. And Patrick, I mean, I used to work with you at the Show Me Institute. We know where I stand on this. We're actually going to talk to Governor Kehoe at around 7:35, but let's go over what was proposed. And it shocked everybody that it was kind of slid in as an amendment on another bill. And we're talking potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. But essentially, as I understand it, and you tell me what I get right and what wrong here, is that the proposal would have had the state front upwards of half of the funding of a brand new stadium for the Kansas City Royals on the Missouri side of the Kansas City area, and then covering about half about $500 million of an $800 million project to renovate and upgrade Arrowhead Stadium, with the condition that they keep all of their stuff on the Missouri side. Is that fairly close to what was put in kind of at the last minute?
Well, I think so. The thing to remember is we don't know what any of this is going to cost. Yeah. The Chiefs and the Royals have not given us term sheets. They haven't committed to what they're going to spend. They haven't committed to leases or anything like that. So we're just kind of guessing. I would have been enormously irritated were I a member of the legislature, because not only was this introduced, 3 days before the end of the session, but a 2-page laid out, list of talking points was circulated. How often or how long does that take to produce, right? They knew about this 2 days before, but decided to come up with a slick handout before they introduced it to legislators. And I understand some state senators weren't aware of this until they heard about it in the media. So this is not the way to legislate. This is an awful lot of money. It should have gone through hearings. It should have been a standalone bill. The people of Missouri should be able to understand what's being asked of them. So the process was awful. The other point that proponents of this spending either don't understand or choose not to be honest about is the economic impact. They want to pretend that if these stadiums go away, and let's just imagine for a second that they just vanish, that the money that you and I and other people spend at stadiums just is no longer spent. But that's not the case. If we didn't have football and baseball games to go see, we would spend that money on dinner, on bowling, on something else. You don't lose that economic spending. It just goes somewhere else. Yet proponents of this pretend that just losing a choice of where to spend your money means that money isn't spent. So all the economic impact numbers are completely suspect. And even if you were to say, hey, Patrick, if we lose these stadiums, the people from Kansas who now come into Jackson County to spend money, well, that would be lost. And that would be a fair argument. The problem is these subsidies eat up any of that benefit we would see, and in fact end up costing us money. So this is a horrible way to introduce a horrible argument. And I am really proud, I have to say, of the reporting in the Kansas City Star, which almost every time makes it clear that decades worth of economic impact studies say that there is no benefit to these teams. If Governor Kehoe and the fans of the Chiefs and the Royals simply said, we love our teams, and in order for them to love us back, we need to give them billions of dollars, that would be defensible. But it's when they start claiming that it's going to create jobs and generate positive income for the state or the county, that's when they're just absolutely wrong.
Okay, so let me ask a follow-up question on that, because I feel like I've got to play the devil's advocate, even though I completely agree with you. I mean, and yeah. You're only saying this because there are studies after studies after studies that confirm what you're saying. But I'm just saying. But here, let me ask about the part about, and the Heartland Institute, I think, study from years ago made that point really well, which was saying that if these teams vanish, that people are still going to spend on entertainment and that sort of thing. I guess one of the different variables is, but people would still be spending it, is the argument. They would just be spending it in another state at a stadium 5 or 10 miles away. So the behavior patterns wouldn't change, just somebody else would be getting the money. And the argument they're making is this is $50-some million of tax revenue a year is what they're saying, and whatever. And the economic impact, of course, you can call anything economic impact, but so it's not a matter of they're moving, like, say, away from Oakland to Las Vegas like the Raiders are doing. This would be still in the market, just a completely different set of governments would be getting the revenue.
Right. And again, that is a fair observation to make. The point is, we don't see an economic impact here that's meaningful. So if the team picks up and moves into Kansas, it becomes Kansas's headache. Kansas doesn't see an economic return because all these deals, and not just a state deal, but all the locality deals, hoover up any economic impact in tax, property tax, sales tax, income tax, and give it right back to the developer. So it is two states playing a zero in, well, perhaps a negative return on investment, but playing this game where they pretend that they're fighting over something meaningful. They're not. It's whether Kansas wants to have a zero or negative economic impact, or whether Missouri is going to have a zero or economic impact. The winners, you think of Amazon or Boeing, all the time that these businesses put states and cities against each other to fight for, having their warehouse or whatnot. Even if you win these deals, you lose. You may get the pride of ownership. And again, that may be worth something. I argue it's not worth billions, but that's really all we're fighting about is pride. And one thing that is that if the teams picked up and moved to Kansas, not only would we be done with this headache, but it would still be called the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals. The rest of the country already thinks that Kansas City is in Kansas.
They do.
Yes. And look, nobody points out that the New York teams play in New Jersey. So again, this is a I want to say a bait and switch. It's smoke and mirrors. It's all these ways, all these arguments people are making to try to give billionaires more money. That's exactly what it comes down to. And it is embarrassing, if not enraging, that Republicans who claim to be fiscal conservatives, who claim to want to cut spending, who claim to want to cut taxes, are the chief cheerleaders in both Kansas and Missouri to give money to these wealthy teams. And it's irritating. If you're a fiscal conservative, I don't know where you go these days.
Good morning, Patrick. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So who do we need to convince on the argument? Because this thing seems to come up all the time. It seems to be on some level politically tenable for people to push for these things. Who needs to be convinced that no, this should never enter our political discussions ever again, so that we can kind of stop doing this dance?
Well, that's a great question. I am really happy. Well, first I want to explain and convince journalists and reporters. The Kansas City Star gets it. The Missouri Independent gets it. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch is beginning to get it. And ultimately, it's the people of Missouri who need to understand this. I am very pleased that the people of Jackson County last year turned this down. And by the way, not by a little. Mm-hmm. There were plenty of reasons for them to vote against the deal a year ago. They didn't like where the stadium was put. They didn't like that the teams hadn't provided any numbers. But ultimately, the people have to understand that, yes, these projects look big, whether they're entertainment districts or warehouses or corporate headquarters. They look big. They look like investment. They look like something new is happening. It looks like jobs are created, but it's an illusion. It's a mirage. None of it is true. It is spending taxpayer dollars just to move numbers between cities or counties. It's nothing real. And I think people in Missouri and around the country are starting to wake up to the fact that this is just a shell game. Nobody benefits except for the owners, and they benefit a great deal.
Okay, we just got a minute or so left. We're visiting with Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute. This is a little into the weeds and a little complicated, particularly with Arrowhead Stadium with the Kansas City Chiefs. That is publicly owned already. So if the team stays there, the public owns the stadium as well. Does that change any of the calculations regarding just upkeep and keeping it a competitive structure?
You say we own it, and you need to put an asterisk by that because we don't get revenue from the naming rights.
Right.
If teams are willing to give up the naming rights, it might make this a good deal for the taxpayers, but they never want to give up anything. They are committed to stay there through 2030. I think the Royals are running out of time. I suspect they're going to end up re-upping for 5 years. But part of the argument I would make long-term is that cities and states should not own these stadiums. Look, this is if you're a Ford plant or a car manufacturer, you own your own plant. Teams should own their own stadiums. They should take care of it as part of their cost of doing business. But I get it. If you can push things off onto the taxpayers, that's a great business model, but taxpayers shouldn't be okay with that.
All right. And Patrick, I mean, you obviously are all over this at the Show Me Institute. The way to connect with you if people have questions, because I mean, the bottom line is politicians don't want to be the ones in office when, the World Series champions or the Super Bowl champions pack up and leave town. They don't want to be the ones that get tagged with that by, sports fans who like that pride of ownership. And then that's the intangible that may be overriding the tangible right now.
Well, look, listen to the people. The people in Jackson County and around the state of Missouri are leading on this, and they're telling you this is a bad deal.
Yeah. Yep. All right. And we follow the work you do where, Patrick?
Oh, you can find me at showmeinstitute.org and on Twitter, if you care to, at Patrick Tuohey. But look, the Kansas City Star, the Missouri Independent, they're doing great reporting on this.
All right. Patrick, good talking again. Thanks so much.
Thanks, sir.
Hey, thank you. Take care.
All right. And we're going to talk to Governor Mike Kehoe about this at 7:35. This was for all intents and purposes, this was his proposal. So he's got obviously a very different take on that. And it is, I think, sometimes really difficult for somebody to say, but wait a minute, I'm looking at the stadium. I'm looking at the fees that are being paid in. I'm looking at the tax revenue. I'm looking in St. Louis. I'm looking at Ballpark Village. I'm looking at all these. Now, they're not looking 2 blocks away at all the vacant buildings that were eliminated because all the incentives were for Ballpark Village. But it's the seen versus unseen, and the seen is very glitzy.
Yes.
It's easy to see. All right, got some thoughts on it? Let me know. This is 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Indifference. Stop it right now before you blow us all away. Get up, can't you hear the alarm? On the next
Larry Connors, USA.
Trump already has several deals on his trip to the Middle East. More will be coming. We'll bring you up to speed.
Larry Connors, USA.
Now, weeknights 6 until 8.
On News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, what makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service and workmanship.
Thanks, Kathy. To find out more, visit them at ConnorRoofing.com. That's CONNER Roofing.com.
Columbo here for my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The knowledgeable staff at Bluff City has served the St. Louis outdoor community for decades, and they can take care of all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your fishing needs, and more. Plus, while you're there, you can schedule a trip with a local fishing guide and shoot in their archery range. Bluff City Outdoors is open 7 days a week, 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's at 2813 East Broadway in Alton. Follow them on Facebook and at BluffCityOutdoors.com.
I'm Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Human trafficking is occurring right here in Missouri. You can help combat it by learning the signs of human trafficking and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement. Victims may appear malnourished, show signs of mental or physical abuse, or avoid social interaction. If you're a victim or know someone who needs help, contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text the word HELP to be free. Together, we can fight human trafficking in Missouri.
Brought to you by the Missouri Attorney General's Office.
I really like all the things you're saying.
News, analysis, opinion.
Thank you very, very much.
News Talk STL.
Hi, it's Randy Tobler here. Pour a big cup of coffee and catch my show every Saturday morning from 6 to 9. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning here on News Talk STL.
All right, the media is now discovering that Joe Biden's health decline was covered up. It was a cover up by the media.
So basically, they're just telling us what we already accused them of knowing, but
Yes.
not telling us.
And they were angry when we pointed out what they were doing.
Oh, they
at
were
the time.
indignant at all of it.
That's a good word. That's a better word. They
Mhm.
were indignant without a doubt. It is 7:22 right now. Don't forget NewsTalkSTL.com, just the website. It's clearinghouse of all things News Talk STL, our social media, our podcast, live streaming, you name it, we've got it. Also, Governor Mike Kehoe is going to be with us at 7:35. So we're going to be able to get the other perspective on the whole thing because, you know, as far as the Chiefs and the Royals go, listen, the Chiefs have been adopted by St. Louis fans, you know, and I get it. That's great. I'm a Battlehawks guy. You know, I don't really care about the NFL, but you know, the Chiefs are a statewide team now. You know, the Royals, you know, are the Royals, but this has become a St. Louis issue because of the proposal to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. And the one with the Arrowhead Stadium, I mean, that's an interesting thing to say, okay, well, you got to keep up what you own. And Patrick Tuohey is right in that the teams should own their own stadiums. You know what happens when teams own their own stadiums? What history and what the research has shown? You know what they don't do?
What's that?
Move.
No way.
You know what they do?
What?
They invest in their own stadiums.
Whoa.
They invest and take care of their
That's
thing.
wild.
As though like you own. It's the difference. Think about it. If you own your house, you have an incentive to keep it up and keep the value up as opposed to renting. And there are a lot of good renters. I've been a lifelong renter, but I've had so many landlords say it's so nice to have somebody who takes care of the place. They're so accustomed to people not taking care of the place. And that's the difference in the incentives on that.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying the Royals and the Chiefs are trashing their stadium. They're not. But what I'm saying is that there's a different set of economic incentives. And I thought Patrick, you know, laid that out very well. That podcast is going to be up in a few hours or so. So be sure to check that out and share that. But get this. Unserious people want to be taken seriously and want us to forget how unseriously they acted towards us in the past.
Yes.
See what I
That's
did
correct.
there?
I see.
Yeah,
I see
the back and forth.
Yeah,
and forth
you,
and back.
you did the weave.
Okay, so Jake Tapper, who, by the way, this is going to surprise you, has a new book out to sell. I'm just saying, he does.
Oh, is that why his name's constantly in the news right now?
Get this. The book is called Original Sin. President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. Okay, so Jake Tapper is doing some of the media tour and now sort of leaning into, well, they knew that he was in cognitive decline and physical decline, and they were covering it up. And it's interesting how he's like, they.
Yeah, it's like, bro,
you did this.
You're they.
So here he is on CNN.
Get your pronouns right.
Yeah. So here's a part of a discussion where he was being interviewed on CNN yesterday.
I'm curious about what his advisors were saying at the time as you look at this, as you reported out this book.
So the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term. But everybody pushed off the notion that he used a wheelchair until after the election. This is all part of a larger whole where the Biden White House tried to hide the extent of his deterioration, both physical and cognitive, as much as possible. In fact, as we all saw, as his shuffling gait got worse and worse from 2003 to 2004, they started putting aides around him as he walked to Marine One, the helicopter that was to kind of hide from public view how bad his gait was, how bad his walking was, his shuffling, and also in case he stumbled again to make sure somebody was there. And this is just of a piece of an overall campaign to try to conceal from the American people the extent to which the president was really struggling to do his job.
Okay, so what's really funny now, Gabe, is that it's really easy to find because the internet is forever.
Yes.
the times where he's anchoring shows on CNN and somebody from either the Trump campaign, at one point, he was basically trying to talk over Laura Trump, and acting indignant. That's the perfect word, regarding people pointing out, hey, the president of the United States in cognitive decline. Hey, he's not all there. Hey, is there some sort of dementia or something involved? I mean, and so he was part of this, and now he's like, well, can you believe that they were trying to hide this from the American people? By the way, read all about it in the book that I'm trying to sell you.
It really is amazing to watch somebody who's basically part of the propagandist cartel now take a step to the side, to hawk his new book and pretend as though he's been a neutral observer the entire time. Like, you were participant. It's like a rioter, during like one of the crazy Summer of Love things. And you're out there throwing bricks and Molotov cocktails and scuffling with police. And then when you realize that something's going wrong, you take a step onto the sidewalk and behind the tape or whatever. And then you pull out a notebook and you put your press hat on and you pretend as though you were just there to watch.
Right. Can you believe people would do this?
Can you believe what they've been doing?
My goodness.
It's wild what's going on out here.
So
for shame, as you wipe the brick dust off your hands.
And that's what cracks me up, is because this was something that has been pointed out, but it was just dismissed as,
as conspiracy theory, it was,
there's the MAGA crowd, saying whatever Donald Trump tells them to say,
lying about the president again.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Joe Biden's not the president anymore. To me, he's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Now, there are investigations into possible corruption, and there are investigations into possible upwards of bribery and criminal behavior.
Straight up.
If those things happen, investigate them, prosecute whoever needs to be prosecuted. But as far as Joe Biden as a politician, he's yesterday's news.
Right.
He is irrelevant. I don't cover him. And with this right here, though, this is about the media trying to convince us, oh, no, we're on the job, even if it means we're going to report on ourselves as part of the cover-up. Of course you would know about the cover-up. You were there. You did it.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild that people who were involved in the crime are now trying to report on it as though they weren't. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so Jake Tapper trying to sell the book on that. But that's when I saw that. And it's like they're so serious and they're doing the furrowed brow thing.
Oh, yes.
Really? My goodness.
Well,
no kidding.
And I remember when they did the furrowed brow thing to berate anybody who would dare question the cognitive capability of the president.
With an eye roll.
Yeah, with an eye. It's like, oh, here we go again with you MAGA people talking about the president. It's like the president is perfectly healthy. The White House physician reported this, and we know from his physical that this is true. And he's like, I work with the president. I've been on Air Force One with him, and he's just fine, and blah blah blah. He's a vibrant man.
The funny part is, in other interviews, Pete Buttigieg and JB Pritzker both tried that. I was there with him, and they are still trying to well, I was there. I didn't say anything that was wrong. That
Oh yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of when Elizabeth Warren kind of got called out by somebody on her own side, some obscure podcast someplace, and he's like, really? Are you really gonna say that he was as competent as you were? Just kind of quoting her on it.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I just said I didn't see the decline.
And the funny part was, then they both did the Vance glance at each other.
It was wild.
As in, it was like, how dare you ask me? Don't you know we're supposed to?
We're on the same side. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, we're on the same side. Why are you being?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Wild. So yeah, Jake Tapper trying to cash in.
All right, Governor Mike Kehoe going to be with us at 7:34, right after we hear from one Mr. Larry Connors.
Larry Connors wants us to ask ourselves, what's the difference between a legacy media reporter and a parrot?
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A beautiful morning, but warmer air sneaks in this afternoon. I've got the high today at 86 under mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. A slight chance for a spot shower this afternoon, but the odds are slim, only 10 to 15%. Dry and partly cloudy tonight. Mild temperatures, the low in St. Louis only 69. Thursday looks like the hottest day of the year so far. We'll jump to 92 in the afternoon. Most of us stay dry, but could be an isolated storm or two south and east of St. Louis. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. Means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
Larry Connor's Commentary, brought to you by Vincent's Jewelers, offering a wide selection of jewelry, including lab-grown diamonds, affordable earrings, bracelets, necklaces, and rings, up to 75% off their natural counterparts. Visit VincentsJewelers.com. This is Larry Connor's Commentary on News Talk STL.
Early in my television career, the station was promoting me as our investigative reporter. I didn't like the title, because in my mind, every reporter is or should be an investigator. But I kept my mouth shut, went about my job. In the years since, I think maybe there are titles some reporters should have, like do-nothing reporter, fiction reporter. I really like this one, lying reporter. How would that sound in a promotion? Well, it would fit the reporting of Chuck Todd and Jake Tapper. Todd insists we did report on Biden's diminished capability. But we're not to blame. We just reported what we were told. In other words, he should be labeled parrot, and not a very good one. And then you have Jake Tapper about to release a book about what was happening behind the scenes. Biden staffers were saying if Biden wins again, he will need to be in a wheelchair, but only after he wins. So Tapper had that information at that time. He did not tell his audience. No, Tapper, Todd, and the other reporters lied to you repeatedly. So maybe lying reporter is a good title, not a good promotion.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
Looking for an underwater adventure or a scaly new friend? Dive into Tropical World Pets on Watson Road. For 32 years, this family-owned wonderland has been St. Louis's go-to destination for all things aquatic and reptilian. With over 7,000 square feet of aquariums, we're home to the area's largest selection of freshwater fish, including rare cichlids you won't find anywhere else. But that's not all. We've got tarantulas, snakes, and lizards galore. Tropical World Pets, 314-849-4020, or visit twpstl.com.
This is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the #1 RE/MAX franchise in the region. As a licensed real estate broker with RE/MAX Results for over 20 years, I've seen the ups and downs of many real estate markets, including the one we're in right now. With the spring market in full swing, now is the time to leap into the buying or selling of your home. Someday is not a day. Today is the day to make your move. Call me at 314-852-8933 or email me at markhardersells@gmail.com.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL. Enable our Alexa skill.
Hello.
Hey, Alexa.
Yes, I'm listening.
Play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
Hi, this is Jefferson County Councilman Billy Crow with a reminder to check out our new show, Jeffco Patriot Radio, this and every Sunday at high noon. Now, back to the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show.
All right, an icon of Missouri politics and policy has died, and I would argue just a part of Missouri's culture as well. You didn't have to be a political junkie or a news junkie to have an opinion on Kit Bond, and most Democrats, if they're honest, would tell you they liked him too. You know, they didn't always agree with him, obviously, but they liked him too. So remembering Kit Bond. Don't forget News Talk STL's app. It has been upgraded. That's been on the upgrade now for a month or so. If you haven't updated it, please do that and play around with it. Man, that's a lot of fun, especially that voicemail. And you can get all of our podcasts and everything on the News Talk STL app. It is on any of your app stores, whether it's Android or iPhone. Joined now by Governor Mike Kehoe. Governor, welcome back to the program. Appreciate you being on. I would be derelict in my duty if I didn't ask you about some of the legislative stuff, but we can get to that in a few minutes from right now. We lost a giant in Missouri, and I know Gabe's got some questions on that.
Yeah, Governor, I know he's been discussed as an icon, as Mike said, and I think you would regard him as a friend and mentor. So I just wanted to get your live reaction to his passing and what you think he meant in what his impact was on Missouri politics.
Well, good morning, Mike and Gabe. It's great to be on News Talk STL. I wish it was for a different conversation, to be honest with you. Kit was just a rare person. I wouldn't really even call him a politician. I think statesman is, if you looked up a dictionary with the definition of statesman, I'm really sure you'd be able to see Kit Bond's picture. He just knew how to navigate tough situations, and he was a huge relationship guy. As you mentioned in your opening there, many Democrats really liked Kit Bond and enjoyed being around him. And those same Democrats have told me, we didn't agree with him at all. We fought him on stuff, but he knew how to keep a relationship alive and disagree with somebody. And I think that's the way, Missourians and people in this country want it. They want somebody who will hold their ground and stick to their values. And I believe Kit did that as well as anybody I know. But he never let those relationships diminish, and he never forgot who he was. He was a son of Missouri. Missouri was the place he felt most comfortable in. And I can just tell you a few times I was talking to him about just different stuff. And one time I kind of said senator, and he said, governor was the best title I ever had. And that really told me something about Kit. He was great as a U.S. senator. He did a great job for Missouri. He represented us well. Don't get me wrong. But he really, really liked being in Missouri and with Missourians.
I worked with him the most during, the 90s and 2000s when I was still just doing news reporting and anchoring. And it was a different time back then. It was a different era. But one thing that struck me about this, and I want to follow up on your use of the term statesman, Governor, is that he was an incredibly serious thinker who was also a lot of fun, which I've noticed a lot of people who are responding to his death or reacting to his death. Normally, the first thing you do is shed tears, but those of us who worked with him, in my case, as a member of the media, we all sort of immediately reacted with a smile because we have so many memories and stories, and frankly, some stuff you just couldn't get away with these days.
Well, I'm laughing because I spent a better part of a day with him at the state fair not too long ago on a golf cart. And, his legs were failing a little bit at the time or anything, but his mind was as sharp as a tack, and his wit is what I will never forget. That guy could throw out some stuff that like you say, maybe not always politically correct in today's world. But I mean, as you're saying all that, I'm sitting here laughing because some of my last conversations with him were laughing and smiling about something he said because of his wit. And I think that's what most people liked about him. And as you pointed out, that didn't mean the guy wasn't a pretty smart thinker. He was incredibly accomplished. If you look at his educational accomplishments, it's off the charts, but he never had that appearance of a person who was highly educated or had, been very successful in his educational journey. He always appeared as the guy that would just jump in, grab a broom, and help you sweep that floor.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. We're visiting with Governor Mike Kehoe. Is that you've got somebody who was U.S. senator, governor, state auditor, very, very high caliber mind, and that's impressed everybody, regardless of whether you agreed or disagreed with him. But I think he was one of those few that people didn't look at as a politician, capital P or whatever the case is, because they could picture him hanging out with you at a coffee shop or a bar. And, he just sort of had that everyday, sometimes gruff approach to things. And, you could picture him, rolling up the sleeves and just hanging out with everybody. And there are a lot of politicians who try to create that image, but that actually was Kit. He could actually do that. And that's just the sort of presence that he had when he walked in a room.
Well, you're exactly right. I've been in a boardroom with him, with some of the nation's highest CEOs and executives on issues. I sat with him. One of my last long-term seats with him was at the Missouri Cattlemen's Association beef house up at the Sedona State Fairgrounds, where cattlemen from all over the state walked in and started sitting down, shooting the bull with Kit. And what's interesting is no matter what corner of the state they were from, they would say to him, I remember when you came down to Kennett. I remember when you were up in Nottoway County. I remember when you were in Hannibal. Hey, how about that time we were down in Nevada, Missouri? I mean, and Kit would remember every one of them, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was just amazing to me how many places he had traveled and how much of a memory those people had of him being in their communities.
All right. So I got to talk a little business with you. Obviously, yesterday was an unusual day. Some would call it a chaotic day. There was a proposal that was suggested, and I know you've been supporting on it. Now, we've heard the other perspective on this a little bit earlier in the show regarding state being involved in funding for a new stadium for the Kansas City Royals and upgrades for the Kansas City Chiefs. What was it that was proposed? There's two questions, because there's the question about the policy and the spending itself. And then there's the question as to whether or not kind of a last minute addition this point in this legislative session was the right approach versus running it through the whole process and committee and hearing and vetting, or even a special session if you feel like it's urgent. So what is it that was proposed, and what's your position on what the state government's role should be?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't call it chaotic. I'd call it the last 2 weeks of session.
Yeah.
I mean, something always pops up since I've been around that building that makes it interesting. And let me say this on the proposal. It's an economic development proposal. I'm not going to get too far in the weeds, but essentially it allows the teams to keep some of their tax revenue in order to satisfy bonds. So it's not the state of Missouri just dumping a dump truck load of money in to build a stadium. It's allowing the teams to keep some of their tax revenue. It's an existing economic development model we have that's tweaked and just a little bit fine-tuned to fit this. It works for the Cardinals. It would work for the Royals. It would work for the Chiefs. Anybody who wants to build a major project, this tool would be available to, with some minimums as far as how much they'd spend and seating capacity, et cetera. And the reason it got, we've been working with the teams. We've had an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, which happens a lot in economic development projects. And by the way, I want you and your listeners, this is an economic development conversation. This is not about a baseball or a football team. This is about, you could say this is about a widget manufacturer. It just happens to be in Kansas City, two of them, that are thinking about moving to another state. And when there's that many employees and that many jobs and that much of a ripple effect on the economy, any economic development business, whether it's a baseball team or a widget company, we would want to keep in the state of Missouri. So we put together, with the leadership of the House and Senate and multiple other people from the region, et cetera, some possible proposals that they could look at that, again, is not us just writing checks. It's letting them keep some of their money for a period of time to satisfy what their construction obligations might be. We fully intended to do it in a special session. As you know, from being around the Capitol, every large economic development package we've done, governors from both parties have called special sessions. We've had one for Boeing. We've had one for GM. We've had one for Ford. All of these big economic development ones. And the one for GM was the largest that we had. It was a special session called by Governor Parson, and it was for a $1.5 billion investment there in Wentzville. The Chiefs and Royals investments is over $3 billion. It's double what the largest one we've seen before. And so I told the teams, I told House leadership, this is a large enough package that we really should go in the special session to do this. And I'm still willing to do that. And I think they're willing to do that. Their point was, because there's a deadline with the Kansas offer of June 30th, it has to be done relatively quickly. So you'd be calling House and Senate members back in relatively quickly within the next week or two to do that special session. As long as they're here, let's roll this thing out and let them see what it looks like. It's nothing that is like super secret deal that nobody can figure out. It's essentially what I say. It's essentially them keeping some of their tax money in order to satisfy the project they're going to go forward with, and the legislation required to allow them to do that. And so that's why it was rolled out now. If while they're here and in session, if this is something legislators feel is appropriate to do to keep these two economic development businesses in Missouri, let's take a look at it.
So then would the taxpayers then be basically underwriting the bonds for this to generate the cash, and then the teams are paying the bonds on it? Or is there any upfront money from the taxpayers?
No, not upfront money from the taxpayers. So the bond payments would be made by them from the revenues that they use right now for sales and use tax or for some payroll taxes. And the legislature, the reason I think you saw the House look favorably about it, because the options are allow them to use some of the money they send to us now to make bond payments, or they move and we get none of that money. And what we've structured it is we get the net new. So we, the state, over what they're collecting now in the future, will get the net new sales tax. So if they develop a ballpark village type scenario, which St. Louisans are familiar with, around, let's just say the Royal Stadium, for instance, all of that sales tax revenue, all of the payroll tax revenue, all the things that come with that development would still come to the state. If they're not in Missouri, we'll get none of that. So the risk reward, when you look at it, is let's let them keep some of that tax they're sending to us to satisfy the bond payments. They have to put 50% of the money in all of these scenarios, maybe a hair less than that, maybe 48% in one of the scenarios, but essentially about a 50-50 match. So they have skin in the game. Both facilities would be publicly owned. So it was not owned by any of the teams or the ownership group. It would still be owned by the Jackson County Sports Authority or whatever county the Royals decide to go in. Our proposals are agnostic, that they'll work no matter what part of the state they stay in, as long as they stay in Missouri. So they're publicly owned facilities, not owned by anybody else.
All right, Governor Mike Kehoe, appreciate the update on that. I know we set up the discussion because I wanted your thoughts on Kit Bond. Then, of course, obviously the news cycle kind of dictated that I needed to ask you about that as well. So, Governor,
no worries.
Appreciate you being on. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for remembering our good friend Kit, and Claudia and I's prayers are with Linda and Sam and the family. Just a great family. It's a huge loss for our state, but I hope you're right. I hope people celebrate and smile the times they had with Kit and realize what an impact he had on this state.
All right, Governor Mike Kehoe. Thanks again.
Thanks, sir.
All right, 314-912-1019. I actually, when he was talking about some of those stories, I actually thought of another.
Oh, you got another Kit Bond
that
story?
Was just an insight into Kit Bond. I wasn't anything about me in particular. I just happened to be there to see it as well. Okay, so I'm also going to follow up. Let's have some thoughts on what the governor is saying there regarding, because we've gotten two very different proposals or different perspectives on that proposal there. So let's parse some of that out just ahead.
Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I love learning about national and international issues here on News Talk STL. But do you know what's going on in your neck of the woods, your city, your county, and its politics? If you live in Jefferson County and want to know more about what's happening locally, join Speaker Tim Jones and me, Councilman Billy Crow, as we dive into all things Jefferson County on Sundays at high noon on Jeffco Patriot Radio.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
On News Talk STL.
Hey, Tony Colombo here, inviting you to the Bluff City Outdoors Show Fishing Pentathlon, a one-of-a-kind multi-species fishing tournament Sunday, June 8th at Carlisle Lake. There'll be several side pods, but to win, your team has to catch all 5 species of fish with the highest total weight. This unique tournament gives fishermen of all levels a chance to walk away a winner. Get more info and reserve your spot now by going to BluffCityOutdoors.com and searching tournament entry, or just go to the events tab on the Bluff City Outdoors Facebook page. The Fishing Pentathlon, brought to you by Great Harvest Bread Company in Maplewood.
Hey, firearms enthusiast, looking for a family and veteran-owned shop with a wide selection of products and services? Head to DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green. DG Firearms has been your one-stop shop for custom ARs, Cerakoting, laser engraving, gunsmithing, suppressors, ammo, and reloading supplies. DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green, and online at dgfirearmsllc.com.
Hey, Tim Jones here. For 50 years, St. Louis homeowners have trusted one name with their outdoor dreams, Hydro Dynamics. From custom irrigation systems to stunning outdoor lighting, from expert drainage solutions to beautiful hardscapes, they transform ordinary yards into extraordinary dreamscapes. With certified experts that work with you to bring your vision to life, delivering unparalleled service every step of the way. Ready to make your dreamscape a reality? Visit hydrodynamicscore.com. That's hydrodynamicscore.com.
Hey, it's Aaron Dorr, host of Shall Not Be Infringed, Sunday nights at 9. But now it's more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
I just thought of another Kip Bond story.
Okay.
From what the governor was describing when he said, everybody, remember when you were here and, so I've got one, and this has nothing to do with me. I just happened to be there as a reporter on it. We'll get to that in just a minute. 7:51 right now. Got Gabe Pfeiffer here. Got producer Jerome here. My name's Mike. Okay. So we just had in that 7 o'clock hour, two wildly different perspectives on the stadium funding thing.
Completely different.
Now, I just got word from the Capitol. Tim Jones is there. He said that the stadium funding bill is dead for this session.
Okay.
Now, we also just heard Governor Mike Kehoe say they got to look at it. And it sounded to me like he is going to call a special session.
Yes, he's going to want him back, especially because he said that it's kind of an imminent issue. There's a time crunch behind it. They want it by June.
Well,
something or other.
Because what's happened is the state of Kansas has gone out and approved. They've changed that. They passed the laws or changed the laws that now allow them to offer, frankly, a lot of incentives and frankly, corporate welfare. And they have been trying to attract the Chiefs and the Royals across the state line for years. I mean, years and years and years. They've been trying to do that. And this is, this is over there. But basically, when you got the Missouri, Kansas bi-state area, it's not the same thing as the St. Louis area where we've got the river and, Illinois on the east side, you've got the east side, blue collar, kind of gritty, Sauget, more suburban Fairview Heights and all that sort of thing, and Belleville and everything. Over on the Kansas, Missouri area, Johnson County, Kansas, which is just across the other river, just across that, is one of the wealthiest counties in America.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize that. There used to be a lot of corporate headquarters there, like Sprint and Applebee's and places like that. But it's still an incredibly wealthy area in the country, like one of the top 10 wealthiest areas. So they've been wanting this for a long time and they've got the money to do it.
Right.
Now, I will first and foremost say if the people of Jackson County, Missouri, and the people of the state of Missouri, they have been home and they have taken care of these ball teams, the Royals since the 60s, the Chiefs since they moved up from Texas when they used to be the old Texans. And so if it's a matter of, well, who's going to make me the better offer? I'm out of here. To me, makes these team owners seem like some of the skanky women on social media reels. I know my worth. That's basically how I'm looking at the Hunt family right now.
Six figures,
the ownership.
6 packs, 6 feet.
Even though I've got 4 kids by 4 different dads,
yeah.
That's kind of how I'm looking. You're going to bid for my affection. I will love you when you give me the best deal of the money. And part of this is, hey, business is business. And like Patrick Tuohey said a little bit earlier, if you can get somebody else to, be responsible for putting up a lot of that money or buying the bonds to put up the money and then ultimately be the final responsibility for that, well, why wouldn't you offload it? That's just good business.
Yeah.
If you could get somebody else to pay it, OPM and other people's money. So that's where the difference. So what I would encourage is if you're not sure what to think, listen to that podcast with Patrick Tuohey, listen to that podcast with Governor Kehoe, and then you've got 2 very different perspectives who had basically equal time to say and make the arguments on that.
Yeah. Now to help, and I had to ask Mike about this, by the way, but to help people understand the whole bond issue.
Right.
So the best I could come up with between Mike and myself is characterizing it as basically a government guaranteed loan, to the owners.
And essentially, if you understand what tax increment financing is, which is I have issues with that. This is a giant scale that. So, up whatever percentage the state will be responsible for fronting that money. They're doing that through bonds. So they're not cutting a check, as the governor said, and that sounds correct, but they will be the ones who are underwriting the bonds and guaranteeing the bonds. And then that money comes in to start paying for the construction. And then the Chiefs and the Royals would not be paying any extra payments to pay those bonds back. The taxes that they're already paying would be redirected into paying those bond payments. So the state would actually not collect as much money from them, but the payments would then to retire those bonds. If there is, in some bizarre case, a default, the taxpayers are responsible for that.
Right.
Now, these are billion-dollar organizations. That's very unlikely.
Yeah.
to happen.
But it's in the interest of these billion-dollar companies to mitigate risk, and that's all of this.
Right.
That's what all of this is all about. Is they want to mitigate risk as much as possible, and pushing it off to the government is one of the ways. They do that.
And why is that? For if you're a bond underwriter, you want to write a government bond. You want to write it because there's no chance of a default because they can always tax us more.
Exactly. So the government's not going. If the government goes away, you don't have. There's a lot you don't have to worry about at that point.
Exactly.
So when the government underwrites things, everybody wants that to happen.
Right, precisely. So we would be the ones on the hook. I think everybody would agree on that. They're just arguing that instead of paying taxes into the state coffers, those taxes would then go to make the payments on those bonds.
Right.
And that's kind of like how tax increment financing work. That's kind of how community improvement district things. That's how a lot of these things work. And critics, and I'm one of them, just will look at that and saying, well, that's corporate welfare. It's your stadium. You're the one making all the money. You should be the one to invest in your business the way that all of us have to invest in our businesses.
Yeah.
Hey, government didn't build these studios that we're in. We had to raise that money the old fashioned way.
It's our risk
by selling something and taking a risk on that. So.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine-in or carry-out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com.
The big St. Charles County Gun Show, coming to the Steel Shop Athletic Center in St. Charles on May 16, 17, and 18. 500 tables full of pistols, handguns, rifles, shotguns, ammo, and more. Admission is just $14, and it's good for the entire weekend. Kids under 12 get in for free, and there's discounts for veterans and first responders. If you tell them Aaron Dorr sent you, there's even more discounts. The big St. Charles County Gun Show, May 16, 17, and 18 at the Steel Shop Athletic Center in St. Charles. Go to bkpromotions.us for more information.
Why leave your company's story to chance? In today's digital world, video content isn't just an option. It's essential for your success. At Blue Ocean Media Group, we've spent decades crafting compelling visual stories for businesses just like yours. From concept to completion, our award-winning team transforms your vision into powerful video content that connects with your audience and drives results. Don't trust your brand to amateurs. Partner with Blue Ocean Media Group. Visit blueoceanmediagroup.com today, and let's bring your story to life.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
I'm Greg Claw. Capitol Hill, Republicans are working to advance President Trump's package of spending cuts and tax breaks.
House Speaker Mike Johnson hopes to send the bill containing more than $5 trillion in tax breaks to the Senate by Memorial Day.
That's what this committee will deliver in the one big, beautiful bill.
Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith.
It makes permanent the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act.
The package boosts spending on deportations and the Pentagon. It rolls back green energy tax credits, but faces opposition from Democrats.
They want to pay for it by sticking us with additional debt.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
And by enacting the largest health care cut in American history.
Jennifer King, Washington.
President Trump met with Syria's interim president in Saudi Arabia earlier today, the first such meeting between U.S. and Syrian leaders in more than 2 decades. The BBC's Lise Doucette says the Trump administration's announcement to lift sanctions is a huge deal for Syria.
You cannot measure the impact of this web of multi-layered sanctions imposed over many years, which have strangled the economy in Syria. This moment, this gesture by President Trump in announcing here in Riyadh, the president made it clear that it was under the pressure and the encouraging of Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who persuaded President Trump, who initially, after the fall of the decades-old dictatorship in Syria, he had no interest in Syria.
It's going to be feeling more like summer than spring in a large portion of the U.S. The National Weather Service is urging residents from the Dakotas to Texas and other parts of the South to use caution during sweltering heat this week. More at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. Look at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com, sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A beautiful morning, but warmer air sneaks in this afternoon. I've got the high today at 86 under mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. A slight chance for a spot shower this afternoon, but the odds are slim, only 10 to 15%. Dry and partly cloudy tonight. Mild temperatures, the low in St. Louis only 69. Thursday looks like the hottest day of the year so far. We'll jump to 92 in the afternoon. Most of us stay dry, but could be an isolated storm or two south and east of St. Louis. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Hi, Sean Long from STL Fenceworks. A new fence or deck is an investment in your home and your lifestyle. But how do you ensure that you're getting the most out of that investment? At STL Fenceworks, we know the key is satisfaction. Satisfaction means getting a fence or deck that not only meets your needs, but exceeds your expectations. Satisfaction means working with a team that cares about your project as much as you do. Satisfaction means having confidence in the quality of your new fence or deck, knowing that it was built with the best of materials and workmanship. STL Fenceworks, your satisfaction is our passion. And for me, satisfaction is knowing that providing for your family is how I provide for mine. Visit stlfenceworks.com and experience the satisfaction in making your backyard dreams into a reality.
Mike Ferguson.
This is the kind of adventure I usually have to force upon us, and here it is, falling into our laps.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
They're buying it.
Can't you hear the alarm? Get up, St. Louis.
Watch a couple squats, son.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up! This is your cousin.
I'm going to sneak in that other Kit Bond story.
Yes, I want to hear
just
this.
a moment here. By the way, all right, here's what's coming up here. A last-minute corporate welfare plan shot down in the Missouri legislature, at least for now. Now, you can call it corporate welfare. You can also call it, as the governor just did a few minutes ago, economic development as well. I guess it depends on your perspective. I'll tell you what's going on. Also, an icon of Missouri politics passes away. I've got one story for you on that in just a second. And then the Cardinals, hoping to keep that hot streak alive before we do the news dump. Here's that Governor Kehoe just a few minutes ago was talking about he always found it interesting that no matter where Kit Bond went in the state, there was somebody saying, hey, remember that time that?
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of a time that. So back in my early reporting days, we were somewhere in a rural area. And he was like at a farm bureau thing or something like that. And it was a weekend daytime. And so a bunch of us reporters were just kind of around him, and we had the microphones up in his face. And there was like a little league baseball game happening in the next property over. And so we're asking about whatever the big thing was of the day, probably some farm bill, probably some tax thing or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, Kit stops talking, goes, wait a minute, hang on, guys, move. You look, some kid hit like a double into a gap, and they're like he all of a sudden just wanted to see what happened with the play, because Kit Bond was a baseball guy,
right?
And he, even though it was kids who were probably 10 or 11 years old, he's like, hold on, let me see. Oh man, he really hit that one hard. Look at that, right? Like, oh, that's a double. All right, what were you saying? And then he went back to talking about the big national.
That's funny. That's awesome. So well, I guess I like hearing those stories because it reminds you that even though these people they're high profile,
right.
they're very powerful, they're just regular people too.
Yes,
and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that was that when the governor was talking about that, I'm like, oh, I have one of those too, and that I just happened to be there for that one. That was just funny here. All right, let's go and dump some news on you here.
The morning news dump brought to you by Common Sense Rentals.
Successful dump. Wake up, America. It all worked out.
They got all the news.
The morning news dump.
Okay, so we did not see this one coming. A last-minute amendment to a bill threatened to bring the Missouri legislature to an impasse. Now, turns out it did not, but yesterday was a nutty day in Jefferson City.
Things got a little contentious, I think, up there, right?
And they're still contentious from what I'm being told.
So there's some hurt feelings.
Yes. So what happened was the proposal was an amendment that was a funding plan to help build a new stadium for the Kansas City Royals and also cover much of the cost of renovating Arrowhead Stadium for the Chiefs. Okay, the proposal would have committed hundreds of millions of dollars to these projects. The plan was not introduced as a standalone bill, and it was not, vetted or discussed in a committee. It did pass the House as an amendment, but it was basically shot down by the Senate. I am being told literally like an hour ago that this proposal is dead for this legislative session. We also just spoke about 20 minutes ago to the governor, and the governor says, at least I read what he was saying, Gabe, to say that he's going to call a special session probably within a couple weeks to deal with this proposal, which was designed to keep the Chiefs and the Royals in Missouri. They're being courted by the state of Kansas really hard, and the state of Kansas is ready to write checks.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very interesting political move that I think was being made here. Now that we actually have a chance to respond to it, to explore it a little bit. I think the intention was probably to get this into the special session. Right?
Probably. That's what it looks like.
But now it's a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's certainly going to be a something to discuss.
It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. If there's a special session called, it'll be interesting to see.
There probably will be.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me, if I were a gambler, I would bet money on it. Based on what the governor just told us, he's calling a special session.
Now, I do also wonder what the effect of proposing this amendment at this time is going to have on the legislation that's kind of on the docket.
Yeah, because basically, there was a filibuster. Both Republicans and Democrats supported it to stop this. So essentially, 3 days before the end of the session,
everything went on hold.
A day was lost. There was a lot of time lost. All right. Former U.S. Senator, former Governor Kit Bond has died. He passed away in St. Louis on Tuesday. Bond served as governor from 1973 to 1977, and then again as governor from 1981 to 1985. After that, he served 4 terms in the U.S. Senate. Christopher S. Bond was 86 years old. MissouriNet.com and the governor's office websites have the details of his memorial services, which will be next week. There will be some at the Capitol in Jefferson City, and then there will be some at the Presbyterian Church where he attended here in St. Louis as well. I think it's Ladue Presbyterian, but that's what I remember. Okay. This is frustrating and this is angering. The numbers are in. According to Planned Parenthood's own published reports, as in the things that they put out to their supporters and tax purposes and all that, Planned Parenthood admits to having committed over 402,000 abortions in the U.S. in 2024. Of course, I say committed and admits. They would brag about this. To them, this is success.
Oh, yeah.
The exact number of innocent lives taken is 402,230. That's according, again, to their own annual report. That report also says they received $792.2 million of taxpayer funding in 2024. Wow.
That's crazy. That's ridiculous.
Yes. As a matter of fact, we taxpayers, we the people, were Planned Parenthood's largest financial supporter we provided 39% of Planned Parenthood's $2 billion of revenue. And that's up from the year before, where we only provided 34%, according to previous reports.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It's crazy.
Well, it's just infuriating.
Yeah.
And so your move, Republicans, right now in this big, beautiful bill, you're talking about spending, you're talking about reconciliation, you're talking about avoiding a Democratic filibuster. You've got the opportunity to line item out at least $792.2 million and get rid of that spending. So your move, Republicans, what are you going to do?
Seriously.
Let's find out. Okay. Remember that judge in Wisconsin who snuck the illegal alien out the back door?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. On charges that she helped a violent illegal alien evade arrest. On the Ingram Angle on Fox last night, Senator Josh Hawley, he's calling the indictment a victory for law and order.
I'm tired of these judges all across the country acting like they're above the law, acting like they are some sort of tin pot dictators who can sit up there and say, oh, here's what we want to do. I'm going to run the country. I'm going to be president.
The only thing I'm going to disagree with is I don't think it's a victory for law and order until she's convicted or pleads guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want prison time.
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Just a little bit, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Prison time is necessary, I think, for the state of the country.
For there to be any justice on this, in addition to her losing her law license.
Oh, yes,
and,
all that stuff.
Pension or whatever else. Dugan is charged with helping Eduardo Flores Ruiz escape ICE officers who were trying to arrest him. And that was during a court hearing on charges of domestic abuse.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when that happened. And the judge literally snuck him and his lawyer out the back door of the courtroom.
It's disgusting.
To avoid arrest in the courtroom, in the halls of justice. That's where this happened.
Yeah, she thinks she's part of the Underground Railroad, but she's just part of a cartel underground.
Exactly. Good God. All right, few sports things happening here. The new UFL power rankings are out, and the Battlehawks actually fell a spot. Remember last week they were number two in the power rankings. Yeah. So Fox Sports analyst RJ Young has them at number 3 in this week's rankings. Right behind the Battlehawks is this week's opponent, the defending champion Birmingham Stallions, who are going to be at the Dome on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Michigan Panthers and DC Defenders are number 1 and number 2, respectively, in the power rankings. All 4 teams are 5 and 2. And the Battlehawks, huge game this week. It's going to really set the table for who's going to be in what position for the playoffs. If they can beat the Stallions, who again, very, very good team. If they can beat the Stallions, that's going to be massive. This is going to be like one of those determining games for the Battlehawks for this season.
Absolutely. And it's at home.
Yep.
And it's at noon.
It's at noon. It's a day game.
Go to the freaking game.
That's right. At the Dome, man. Okay. Cardinals and Phillies game got rained out. They're going to play a split doubleheader today. First game at 12:05, second game 5:15. Both of those games are on FanDuel. Major League Baseball posthumously reinstated Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, that means both are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. Doesn't guarantee they're going to get in, but they're no longer banned from consideration. Jackson died in 1951. Pete Rose died last September.
Indifference. Stop it right now before you blow us all away.
This Memorial Day weekend, bring your crew to Busch Stadium to see the Cardinals take on the D-backs. May 23rd to the 25th, catch great promotions all weekend long, including a Mason Win bobblehead and a Kid City Connect jersey giveaway. Kick off your summer with ballpark hot dogs, ice-cold beers, and entertainment for the whole family. Tickets are available at Cardinals.com. This is how summer is meant to be. See you at the ballpark.
This is Alec Burleson, St. Louis Cardinals, for the Lou.
Catch a Cardinals game on your next date night or friends night out. Whether it's love in the stands or laughter with your crew, nothing beats ballpark vibes under the lights. Cold drinks, great eats, and Cardinals baseball. Check out Friday Night Live at Busch Stadium and enjoy happy hour price food and drinks all game long. Every Friday home game. Get your tickets today at Cardinals.com and make memories that go beyond the scoreboard. Busch Stadium, where great nights begin.
Hey, News Talk STL listeners. This is Levi, CEO of Reach Reproductive Health. There was a huge gap left when the biggest pregnancy center in St. Louis had to close their doors right after Amendment 3. But by God's grace and power, Reach has been able to step into that space. We have acquired Thrive centers and are continuing operations in greater St. Louis. I have a request for you. Would you pray and consider getting to know Reach more? We are here to see babies saved and families transformed by the power of Christ. Get to know us on our Reach community website, outreachforlife.org. That's outreachforlife.org.
JC's got a new Saturday night show.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. 3 big hours of great tunes from the 90s, 80s, and 70s. Plus bits and pieces that'll take you back to the best years of your past.
Fresh details on the big Brian McKenna Day coming up on the 31st. And with Memorial Day rapidly approaching, our A-list interview with Tom Hanks talking about the making of Saving Private Ryan.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. On News Talk STL. 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL, live and local.
Listen to what those local folks are telling you.
News Talk STL. Love the music you hear on the morning show? Check out Mike's morning music playlist at newstalkstl.com.
All right. This is going to sound like a weird question.
Okay.
We would never do that on this show.
Weird questions on the Mike Ferguson Morning Show?
Have
That's
we
crazy.
lost so much common sense that businesses will now refuse to take money from people?
Oh, boy.
Right here in the area.
Oh, boy.
I saw this on Channel 2's website. It just cracked me up.
Okay.
But it also is like, okay, but what does this say about us?
Mhm.
Kind of thing here. Don't forget Flashback Friday. That is coming up this week, obviously. I think let's do Flashback Friday on Friday this week. What do you think, guys? Friday? I think we'll do it.
This
So
Friday,
get your 80s bump music requests in. Got to get those in today. All right,
And
I'm
we'll
going to
do
get
it
to
live.
that in just a second here. And I'm sorry, I just asked you, Jerome, but I forgot. Well, who we got on the line here?
We have John.
John. Okay, so John's got, we were talking about like what's going crazy with the kids and everything these days. So John has, I guess, either a theory or an answer to it. If you can do it kind of quick, John. So what is it? Because Jerome was trying to explain it to me and I wasn't following along real well.
Okay. Back when I was teaching in the junior high school, one of the books we had mentioned that when full moon went over, the Empire State Building stretched about anywhere from 8 to 12 inches, depending on how close it was.
The building itself stretched?
Yes, it stretches. So there's a pull against everything on Earth when the full moon goes over. Now, in England, the insane asylums, the people who were in there, they started calling them lunatics because when there was a moon, which Luna is moon, they would act crazy. So there might be some kind of a pull on the brain. That's just a theory I had because I was trying to put different facts together, try to figure out why.
Okay, I mean, we know about the, the tides and the lunar effect on all that, and that's where the tides happen. So, but I mean, the moon's been around, generations and thousands of years. How would that explain how we're getting weirder and more accelerated today versus, the 1800s or 1900s?
Well, it's maybe we just didn't notice it that much. That's the only thing I can think of.
So we've always been crazy.
Yeah.
There's always been crazy people around.
Yeah.
Now there are obviously there are gravitational effects on the moon and because the moon doesn't revolve around the Earth in a circle. It's not a circle,
right? It's kind of like
it's an ellipse.
Yeah, elliptical.
Right. It's an elliptical orbit. So so when the moon gets a little closer, then there's a little bit of a pull.
Yeah, I will say this, John. My dad was a chaplain for the Illinois State Police. And he did say that they kept track of when it was a full moon.
Oh yeah.
He said because they said we can't prove it. They said but they were more on edge and they said people were weirder and more weird stuff happened. That was their like guy talk, like locker room talk that they kept that.
And it is statistically true also that that crime increases.
Okay. Well, there's something to that.
Yep. Oh, maybe he's onto something.
Thank
you. Thank you, John.
Hey, John, appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right, guys. If anybody do some Google searching on that, that could be an interesting discussion.
Now, I don't know why it's changing over time.
Yeah. I mean, is that? But I mean, could could a building be stretched by? I mean, the tides I get because
Now,
it's such a massive.
I've
never heard that before.
I haven't heard anything about it
I've never
actually
heard that.
affecting structures that way.
Right.
But,
I've
yeah,
never heard that. Yeah. But all right. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So I saw this on Channel 2's website. This is so funny. Okay. Over in Caseyville.
Mhm.
All right. So I have never been to Dairy Haven, kind of a ice cream place over there. But they have now put out a pre-summer warning to the customers.
Okay.
Now you would think that, it's starting to get hot. It's going to be in the 90s, I think, today or tomorrow, up in the 80s, it's going to be really, really nice. So now you're starting to think of, ice cream and frozen yogurt and all that kind of stuff, but they're actually putting a warning out, which is not the typical marketing that you would think.
Right.
But they are a cash only business. And that matters in this discussion here.
Okay.
So they put out on a Facebook post, and I'm quoting here.
Mhm.
If money is seen being pulled from anywhere other than a pocket, wallet, purse, satchel, and pulled from a sweaty body area, we will refuse it.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. All right. Well, you know what? Yes, they have the right to do that, and I think that's probably good for their employees to be able to refuse money from a sweaty location on your body. But why is this such a problem?
Yes, that's
that
my
they
question.
have to make a rule.
Okay, so that's like the first question around the room. This is a business.
Mhm.
According to this, they are a cash only business. According
Right.
to the Channel 2 story on this.
All right.
So like with me, I'm accustomed. I mean, I'm trying to eat better. But if I go get a frozen yogurt or a concrete or anything like that, a custard or whatever, I just pull out the debit card and do the thing, and I don't worry about it. But if you're a cash only business, they make their money and their profit margins by taking cash, and they're saying we will not take the cash if you pull it from somewhere else.
So as somebody that's worked as a cashier at hardware shops and food places, as well as a movie theater, the places I've seen people pull wads of cash that were not in a wallet is concerning. And to further emphasize this point, the average dollar bill has about a 5-year lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
The national average for people cleaning their money is zero times a year.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you think that's gross, just imagine where the money in your wallet's been.
Well, that's the other thing is, okay, so is I mean, it's the private business. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Is this good business?
Man.
Or does it matter? It's like, at least the employees are like, thank God.
Well, you know what? How much money do you lose when your employees turn up sick?
I am not getting ringworm to give you change.
Exactly. There you go.
Exactly.
Now,
Okay.
yes. Now, real quick, right does say though, this is a great way to pay real estate taxes in person. So,
Oh, there you go.
You pull it from a sweaty.
Okay. So you've been
Right
a
from the sock.
cashier. You've been a cashier. I've worked in, different businesses and handling a bunch of cash, from college and everything. Okay. So what's the weirdest or grossest thing you've seen when it
no.
comes to people handling money? Because I think like what I've seen, like for instance, women holding money in their bra.
Right.
For instance.
Mhm.
Okay.
women of the night holding money in their bra.
Right.
It's common late at night. And the ringworm thing is not just a joke. I had a guy trying to pay me in coins and dollars covered in clearly ringworm on it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do I do? So I had to go hunt down some gloves because I'm like, dude, I'm not going to cross contaminate all of our money for you.
Oh, right.
Gosh.
Put them in a big Ziploc bag or something.
Yeah, like we literally just set it aside. We're like, do we even deposit it? I mean, what do we
do with this?
Pour a bunch of bleach in there. What do you do with
Put it in a
that?
deep fryer? Yeah.
Oh my god.
I saw somebody take off a shoe and pull out money and then pay money that was
so
stuck
not
in their shoe.
So not in the sock on the side of the ankle like I've
No,
seen
no,
some
no.
people. We're talking like the bottom of the foot.
like underneath their foot in the shoe. I've seen that.
Oh my god.
So my cousin had more money than I did growing up, but we would hang out in my area, and being robbed was not an unexpected thing to happen, especially as teenagers. So
you
he
gotta
used to
hide
keep
your
it
money
in his underwear.
Oh jeez.
Because that way, if you get patted down by somebody, it's like, I don't have my wallet on me. Well, are they gonna?
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not giving you the reach around on this. So,
yeah. So he would literally pull it out of there, but he kept it in the wallet. Luckily,
Not
it
unless
wasn't-
you're lucky.
when I have a coin purse.
I mean, just enjoy the robbery, will you? No.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
Dinner to
My
show.
mom's probably watching on that. All right. Now I got to explain what a reach around is. Okay, anyways.
they them having issues over
That's
here.
right. Okay. So, but this is the question is, what does that say about this? Is a common sense thing
Right.
to me.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's if you're putting it, and I know that I've seen complaints about like women's putting it in their bras.
Yeah,
because
that's
if you
enough.
think about it, that's convenient because it's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that,
Yeah.
you know. And I used to, you know, guys with our jeans, we have this little tiny pocket.
Yeah, the little pocket,
which I think was for like pocket watches and stuff like that.
I can't remember.
I don't
what
know
this
why we
pocket's
have
for,
it.
Yeah.
I would always stuff my dollar bills, you know. in
If you
my-
just got loose dollar
if I'm
bills,
going to
yeah.
do something I'm taking cash at, you know.
I've used that for my change, like
Yeah,
coins.
but
my,
that's
my
where
bills
I put,
went in my wallet.
But that's what
yeah.
it's for, is to carry stuff. And I'd be
Yeah.
fine there. If I pull this out of my pocket, I'm fine. But it's like, what clothing items or orifices are you pulling your money out of?
Now, straight up says that he actually prefers to use cash, so their decision
Yeah.
would actually affect his business with them. Now, me personally, I prefer to use cash as well.
Yeah.
But I also prefer to keep it in a wallet,
Yeah, exactly.
or not
Yeah.
getting a fanny pack so you can also
Right.
seal. But
I mean, I've seen the armbands with the little pockets in them. It's like, well, do something like that.
But so I think that from a business perspective, again, it's somebody that has to handle your money for
Yeah.
you to get you your good. The safety and the sanity of the establishment, I can respect the right to that. And if they're doing financially well enough to where they can afford to turn away customers,
Yeah,
because
that's what you're talking about, is turning away a customer.
Not that hard to find something to keep your money in, like
Yeah.
it's Lysol or something. But at the same time, there are people that are not doing economically well, and they also want goods and services, and that would deter them. So could there be a case of discrimination there?
Well, but how hard is it to like put it in your pocket?
How hard is it
Okay, so
to
but
not
let's
put money
talk,
in a gross
let's talk
place?
about, it's August. It's late July. It's August.
Oh, man.
It's 94 degrees.
It's 117% humidity, right?
And so I what we're talking about here, generally somebody's wearing a t-shirt and like jogging shorts,
Right.
or something like that. The ones that don't have a pocket,
The one that don't have the pockets.
or they're wearing yoga pants, or so that's
Mhm.
really what we're talking about.
Right,
here.
yeah.
So like the
Most
guy
likely.
that's like on his daily jog, and he just so happens, because he's got jogging shorts on, to
Right.
pull it from his sweatband in his shoulder, which I've also had.
Which would, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that there should be a cleanliness stand. If you would not accept a dirty cup or dirty phone or whatever you're buying, why is it okay for you to give somebody dirty money?
That's a really great point. It's like, so look, and here's what I always come to is whenever I hear some organization, some person, they're implementing a rule,
Yeah.
that means enough people did it that it now needs to be explained.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. And it's just my societal indicator of stupid.
Yeah.
Is, so you see the little tag on the lawnmower that you just bought that has a guy reaching for the blades, and the circle and the slash throughs, like,
Yeah.
don't reach towards the. That's because enough people did it that the lawyer said you got to tell people.
You
not
got
to
to
do
tell
it.
people not to grab the moving blade.
not to grab the moving saw blades, right? So enough people pulled money out of gross places at this business that they said, okay, we need to post it and let the public understand that we don't want their sweaty, gross money.
Yeah, see, now I'm ready to, and I didn't do this before we started talking about it. Now I'm going to look up Dairy Haven's Facebook and see what the responses in the comments are.
Let's check out the
Assuming
comments.
that's still up. That's going to be hysterical. But here's the thing: is like dirty bacteria, germ-ridden $5 bills spend the same.
Yes,
unless
well,
place, but you take it to the bank, you're still getting $5. You deposit, you're still getting $5. So it's the same money. But money itself is like overrun with stuff.
maybe what they need to do then is just put out a clothesline for the people to put their dirty money. It's like, okay,
literal money laundering.
Literally,
there you go.
Literal money laundering. It's like, okay, it's like you put it or a basket. This is the dirty money basket.
Yes.
It's like, don't hand it to me. Just put it over there.
That's right.
I'll get you your change
in a big mesh bag and throw it in the washer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, just ahead here, 8:34, the new book out. And you guys know I love history. But are there lessons that today's politicians should be learning from the founding fathers? The country's got a big birthday coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
250.
Yeah, there's some big fancy word to describe that I don't remember.
Yes, but should they be learning things, particularly from one of the more colorful founding fathers, which would be Benjamin Franklin? This is going to be fun. And the book that we're going to talk about here, let's put that up on the NewsTalkSTL
the book club
here next day or two. So that's coming your way right around 8:34.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A beautiful morning, but warmer air sneaks in this afternoon. I've got the high today at 86 under mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies. A slight chance for a spot shower this afternoon, but the odds are slim, only 10 to 15%. Dry and partly cloudy tonight. Mild temperatures, the low in St. Louis only 69. Thursday looks like the hottest day of the year so far. We'll jump to 92 in the afternoon. Most of us stay dry, but could be an isolated storm or two south and east of St. Louis. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Fox News commentary.
The DNC is moving to push out David Hogg due to gender balance issues. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
When I started skiing, I didn't think about setting any records. When I won my first race, I didn't think about how many more I might win. So when I made it to the top of the world, it never crossed my mind to stop. Being the best isn't the same as being your best. There are no shortcuts to the top, so find the people who help get you there. I'm Michaela Schifrin, and that's what Team Stiefel means to me. If you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stiefel, where success meets success.
Stiefel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
DNC is moving to unseat David Hogg from his seat as vice chair due to procedural concerns over gender balance. There's a motion by Oklahoma Democratic Committeewoman Kaylin Free, who lost to Hogg, to redo the election because she claims two men, including Hogg, were given an unfair advantage and skirted the national party's requirements that its executive committee achieve gender balance. The DNC says it's not due to David Hogg's efforts to primary and unseat what he views as weak Democrats, but that's hard to believe. The Democrat Party does not tolerate dissent. They squashed Bernie twice. They squashed RFK Jr. in his challenge of Joe Biden, and then they killed a primary process after Joe dropped out. Now they're also trying to railroad poor John Fetterman. That party demands compliance, and yet they call MAGA a cult? Weird. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on NewsTalkSTL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Thank you for the opportunity to let me vent here.
Live and local.
Way to be, guys. 1019 all the way.
This is News Talk STL.
I am home.
As we look ahead to the nation's 250th anniversary, we can also look back to some of the lessons in history. I think that would be actually very prudent. What can we learn from then that applies to now? Well, some of those most interesting lessons may come from Benjamin Franklin, of all people, when we look back to the nation's founding. I'm Mike Ferguson. And it just so happens that there is a new book out about Benjamin Franklin, and it is called The Greatest American, and it's written by Dr. Mark Skousen, who joins me right now. And Mark, really appreciate you being on the program. So many different lessons from so many founding fathers of the nation and others throughout history that we can learn from. But boy, Benjamin Franklin was really a character, and it's always fun to watch how he's portrayed in television and movies and things like that. But with your book, you're spending some time looking at some of the warnings that he had that unfortunately have come to fruition, are you not?
Yes, indeed. I came up with this title, The Greatest American, because I found he had 22 different careers as a diplomat and a writer and a scientist, an inventor and a publisher. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I really found in doing this book that Franklin was the most modern of the founders. And so he had a lot to say about what's going on in today's world. Just as an example, this whole trade war, Franklin was a free trader. He's a follower of Adam Smith. He said no nation was ever ruined by trade, but also he's a diplomat. And in fact, Ken Burns says he's America's greatest diplomat. And he negotiated fair trade deals. So there's something that Trump could actually learn from Franklin in that regard. But also Franklin's greatest fear was that a king would someday rule over us. He was very fearful. He said, we need a republic if you can keep it, not a monarchy. And that could apply to today with the president signing executive orders right and left and not going through Congress. But, overall, Franklin was a very optimistic man. He believed in America as a great and happy nation, the promised land. He would revel in today's life of new technologies and a higher standard of living. But he would probably be appalled by big government, the welfare state, and the monstrous national debt. He believed that virtuous and industrious people may be cheaply governed. So we have cheap government today. And his foreign policy was very simple. He said the system of America is commerce with all and war with none. Very idealistic, wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely say that. And of course, I just have hobbyist reading, being kind of a history junkie myself, but on a very, very amateur level. I think that's really fascinating. So before I get into some of the other things he kind of gave us warnings about, let me ask you this question, because there's somebody, Dr. Skousen, who's going to say, okay, but that was the 1700s. It's 2025 right now. Things have changed. Our tactics have to change. Our view of government has to change. Are there principles that are still applying hundreds of years later as we reflect on this 250th anniversary that's coming up? So I think a lot of people would say, interesting history, but it doesn't apply today. Does it apply today?
Well, just like the Constitution, it has to be adjusted to modern times, but still there's some basic principles there. And one of the things that Franklin was concerned about was money and power as two excessive influences in today's world. And we see this all the time with crony capitalism and government just growing and growing and growing because everything is concentrated in Washington, D.C., rather than the local federal governments and so on. Franklin was always an advocate of limited government, and it's been very hard to achieve that. Maybe we realize now the era of big government is over, as Bill Clinton said. Of course, he said that 20 years ago, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. So there are some basic principles, I think. Commerce with all and war with none, that certainly is something that would apply even today. And yes, the economy, everything has become more sophisticated and so forth. But this whole view, Franklin was a businessman more than anything. And he learned that you try to keep your costs down. You're constantly expanding the quantity, quality, and variety of goods and services. We've certainly achieved that. So we don't want to kill the golden goose with too much regulation and excess. I would also say that Franklin is a great motivational speaker. He once said, it is incredible the quantity of good that a single man or woman can do if they make a business out of it. And if we become more business oriented in our how we perform today, the sky's the limit. American exceptionalism will continue. as long as we depend on business more than government to achieve our higher standard of living and better living conditions.
We are visiting with Dr. Mark Skousen, and the new book is called The Greatest American, about Benjamin Franklin. And Mark, I know that when we think of history, we think of especially that revolutionary period in the founding of the nation. We don't often think of things like, well, they had an economy to consider too. In your book, it looks like you're addressing his concerns, Benjamin Franklin's concerns, of things like a national debt and things like inflation, which we don't often think of. Oh, yes, that they had concerns about that as well. Money and monetary policy were very, very real things, and it wasn't just Thomas Jefferson versus Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because really Franklin wrote quite a bit about his concerns about inflation, but he was a little bit like today, again, a modern thinker, because he thought a little inflation was good. He was actually an advocate of paper money because of the scarcity of gold and silver, primarily due to the British restrictions in that area. So he actually wrote a pamphlet on the benefits of a paper money in Philadelphia. But then after the revolution, he looked back and he said, well, too much inflation, that's not good either. And, not worth the Continental and so forth. So that's something that we could apply to today, that when we had too much inflation in the last couple of years, that was not good. The stock market went down. People suffered through higher costs of living. So we need a stable monetary system, no question about it.
And when we look at the things that he's predicted, what are the ways that we could apply not just his warnings, but the principles that he laid out? I mean, obviously, we elect a Congress, we elect a president to manage the day-to-day. But what are the ways that we should pressure them into applying the good ideas that the founders, especially Benjamin Franklin, had?
Well, Benjamin Franklin was an advocate of, again, many things that we would cherish today. For example, he was very much against discrimination. He thought blacks and whites were of equal intelligence. He had a very modern view regarding women, that women's rights was extremely important, and he had a very good relationship. I mean, a lot of people consider him a womanizer and so forth, but he actually met regularly and had wonderful discussions, deep philosophy and so forth with women in his era, especially in France. And also, it's very important that even though America first is what is on everybody's mind, Franklin was very much a globalist. He actually made the statement, it's really profound, where he said, I wish a time when the rights of every man existed all around the world, so that when I stand on another country's soil, I would say, this is my country. And I think we're seeing this kind of divisiveness and a lot of anger right now about foreigners' attitude towards Americans due to this trade war. And it's something Franklin would say, hey, listen, we need to have commerce with all and war with none and good relations with everybody. That's the key to his success as a diplomat. He raised all the money for the French and other allies to fight the British and win the American Revolution. And without that French support, I don't think the Americans would have won.
All right. The book is called The Greatest American by Dr. Mark Skousen. And you can find that, I'm sure, all the places you get your books, and Barnes and Nobles and Amazon and everywhere you go. And Mark, people want to follow the work that you do throughout the year or from here on out. What's the best way to either be in touch or follow your work?
Yep, the best place to go is markskousen.com. And if anybody's interested in my books at a discount, they go to skousenbooks.com. So that's SKOUSEN, skousenbooks.com.
All right, Dr. Mark Skousen, thanks so much for the conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Mike, it's my pleasure.
All right, for you history buffs out there, got some thoughts on that? Let me know. Once again, the book is called The Greatest American by Dr. Mark Skousen, and you can actually find that at the NewsTalk STL bookstore as well. I mean, you could go to Dr. Skousen's website, or you could also go to ours. So newstalkstl.com, look for news and other events, and then you drop down and you can find the book club, and you can find that on there as well. Got some thoughts on that? Because, I know there's probably some things you maybe agreed with, maybe didn't agree with, but I always love talking about what the founders were recommending and warning us about. And so this looks like a fascinating book. I'm really looking forward to reading it myself. 314-912-1019. This is 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Here for the Village Bar in the heart of Des Peres. Since 1948, the Village Bar has been the go-to destination for delicious food, cold drinks, and unbeatable atmosphere. Savor their famous wings, burgers, and onion rings, or grab a drink from their fully stocked bar. Catch all the big games and enjoy the company of their friendly staff. Plus, don't miss the 1879 Distillery, a one-of-a-kind experience right next door. The Village Bar offers the best value in town. Find the Village Bar on Facebook and come experience where history meets great times. You'll be glad you did.
Hi, I'm Helene Tobler, culinary nutritionist at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Here we do practical wellness. Dr. Randy and I have a common sense approach to healthcare. My passion is helping our members enjoy better nutrition because food is medicine. We approach problems with a lifestyle foundation and cutting-edge medical tool chest. At Body of Health, it's about being your healthiest you. If you want to experience healthcare the way it ought to be, schedule a discovery call today at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
If you're considering an annuity as part of your retirement plan, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, Senior Vice President Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel, and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL 1019. Annuities can be a useful tool for some retirement investors, but not all annuities are created equal. Every week, we meet clients who own complex annuities that don't suit their needs and, in some cases, actively undermine their retirement plan. Before you purchase an annuity, get a second opinion from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. Requesting a consultation is free of charge. To request a free consultation, contact us at clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member NYSE and SIPC.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The Supreme Court is divided on birthright citizenship. Zach Smith of Heritage will tell us what to expect from this week's hearings at 4:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic and Ken. We're on every Monday through Friday on News Talk STL. Kenny, how are you?
I'm good.
You know, you got to be some kind of weirdo to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do radio.
You do, believe me.
And that weirdo is Mike Ferguson in the morning show on 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Whoosh.
Man, the show's been full.
Oh, yeah. This has been a very, very action-packed
Oh,
episode.
my goodness. Okay, so let's touch on the politics thing, and then this thing in Caseyville is cracking me up. Okay, so by the way, 8:49 right now. All right, so if you're just kind of joining us heading into work, there was a wild day in the Missouri legislature.
Oh, yeah.
Because the context of all of this is that per the Missouri Constitution, 6 p.m. this coming Friday, which is what, the 16th, I think it is, by the state constitution, that ends the legislative session. There's no, hey, just give me another hour. Hey, let's figure that. No, by 6 p.m. Central Time on the 16th, the session is over per the state constitution's mandate.
Wow.
So whatever is not passed by both chambers, passed fully by the legislature, is done. You got to start over next year. That's the way that works. That's the background for what happened yesterday. And we've talked to Camellia Peterson from Americans for Prosperity. We talked to Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute, and we just spoke with Governor Mike Kehoe a little bit ago. And so what happened is, at the last minute, the Senate passed some mundane bill that I don't think very many people cared about. And the governor asked Republicans in the state House to add on an amendment that would put up hundreds of millions of dollars of funding for sports stadiums for the Royals and the Chiefs as part of a deal to keep them on the Missouri side of the state line. Well, that didn't go over well. It passed the House by a wide margin, and the state Senate, both Republican and Democrat, kind of put their foot down. And people that we normally don't cheer for were on the right side of this, saying, no, you're not going to put something up, and it's not going to, it wasn't vetted. It wasn't marked up. It wasn't marked up, meaning here's how much it's going to cost. It wasn't gone through a hearing. We didn't get to hear testimony. We didn't get to examine it. And that really ticked off a lot of the people, particularly in the state Senate. Lincoln Huff, who I am not a fan of in any way, shape, or form, was on the right side of this. Democrats were filibustering it. And so I got word about an hour and a half ago, a little over almost 2 hours ago, that that proposal is dead legislatively. It is not going to pass. Period. It's over for this session.
Which is good, and I think we can both agree that that's the right decision. However, my worry is with everything else that's on the table right now, did that potentially take away from getting something else done that we've been wanting to, or that should be getting done before the deadline?
And the short answer to that is yes. It does put that at risk, because there are other key priority issues that, frankly, the Democrats want to run out the clock on anyway. They don't want the Amendment 3 repeal and replace done. They don't want the Proposition A sort of tweaking and what supporters are calling a fix done. They definitely don't want the SEPA fix.
And that's an
done.
important one.
And that's probably at least third on the priority list. So if there's something that's going to be put at risk by losing a full day at the end of the session, that might be one of them. I don't know what the read on the timetable is on that. So this gets put in there. We talked to the governor a little bit ago, who supports the deal. He was part of the negotiation of it. And it was interesting that he said, well, now they've all seen it. Now they know it's being proposed. I can call, meaning the governor can call a special session, and then we can flesh it out, in more depth. So what I was hearing from the governor is that a special session is right around the corner.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. But that was, Mary Elizabeth Coleman was, basically on a warpath against this. Democratic lawmakers, senators on a warpath. What was interesting, even some Democrats in the Kansas City, Jackson County area, the Democratic senator whose district includes these stadiums says, I was never consulted.
Wow.
That did not go over well.
Yeah,
now,
that's a little
Democrats are
concerning.
irrelevant, but, so I think we're probably looking at a full-on special session, probably just a week or two after the special session, because it's time sensitive, as in the state of Kansas has essentially said, here's our offer. We need an answer by whatever, end of June, I think it was. And so check out the podcast. Check out the podcast with Camellia. Check out the podcast with Patrick. Check out the podcast with Governor Kehoe. And of course, we also reminisced about Kit Bond with the governor. Because if you knew Kit Bond, you have stories. And I hadn't talked to Senator Bond in quite a while. One other quick story. Years and years ago, I was doing afternoons in Columbia and Jefferson City. And I was in the studio there at 93.9 The Eagle. And it's funny because, Governor or Senator Bond still lived in the area. He lived in Mexico, Missouri at that time, before he moved to St. Louis later on. And he was scheduled to come in and be on the show with me, which was nothing unusual. I talked to him quite often. And he showed up and he's in this big boot. He had sprained his ankle or whatever he did. It wasn't broken, but he was hobbling, and his health wasn't fantastic as it was. But what was funny is we did the interview, it was towards the end of the show, and he headed out and he drove off. And I'm like, wait a minute. I know he's not doing well. And I called his, whether it was chief of staff or publicly, whoever it was. And and she goes, oh, how'd the interview go? I'm like, it was great. I said, you know that the kid drove himself here and just drove himself away. And she's like, what? He's not supposed to do that. I'm like, I'm just telling you. That's what happened.
That sounds like something my grandfather does, to be honest. Yeah.
But he was so emblematic. He's like, it's funny because, people remember Kit Bond. First of all, he really was a world-class thinker. I mean, he really was. But secondly, he was that good old boy next door to you sort of guy. And honestly, there was just sort of this roughneck about his persona that was very authentic, that people liked. about him. So, go to the governor's website. You can also go to places like MissouriNet and whatever, and you can see what the schedule of services are. They are all, from what I can tell, open to the public, including the one in Ladue as well. So, all right. So we got a minute or two left. This thing in Caseyville is really funny. This Dairy Haven ice cream shop.
Mm-hmm.
They put out the notice saying, all right, just so you know, this summer, if you're pulling cash out of any place other than a pocket or a wallet or a purse or, something made for that, we're not going to take your money and you're not getting ice cream.
I stand with the word. So another example, hopefully nobody's eating the breakfast right now, but I, as a former cashier, I have literally had people sneeze into the hand that they have their dollar bills in and then still try to hand it to me to make their payment.
Did you go, no?
I had to give them that look. I had to do, are you kidding me right now?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What? No, I'm not touching your money. You can go get some Lysol, go get some Windex or something.
Or pull out a different dollar. Yeah.
But they have the audacity to look at me like, you're not going to take my money now? I'm a customer. The customers are always right. I'm just like, look, what goes through people's heads when it's a hot summer day and you're keeping your money in your sensitive area, and then you're going to give that to another human being.
Well, it's like, and Gabe mentioned a little bit ago, he said they wouldn't do this unless they had repeated instances of somebody pulling money out of gross places.
Yes.
And I've seen the worst that I saw was, like I said, somebody literally taking off a shoe and digging underneath there and pulling money out of their shoe and paying
and giving you athlete's foot.
I'm like, come on. Are you kidding me?
And like I said, I saw completely covered in as much ringworm as I think will fit onto a human body, and then try to give me their money. And what am I supposed to do? Infect everybody else with ringworm?
No, yeah. So it's not. I think we're determining that's not a reflection on that business. It's more of a reflection on, like, collectively us.
Be clean.
Yes. Wash your hands. Be hygienic, just like Vic Porcelli is.
Yes.
He's just ahead.